Opie asks if they are the a-hole for not paying anymore towards their daughter's wedding after daughter destroyed their mother's wedding dress. My wife made her wedding dress with her mother. It's very sentimental to her and she was very proud of it. It was simple but freaking gorgeous. She has always said that she would love for our kids to wear her dress at their wedding, and we have 3 daughters, 34, 30, and 25, and 1 son, 28. My wife made it known that the dress was not to be altered except to be taken in/let out so it could be kept and reworn. Our youngest daughter didn't wear it. Our daughter-in-law wore it for their reception, and our son held it up against him for some pre-wedding bridal pictures so he wasn't left out, and he totally rocked it. And our oldest daughter wore it for her wedding. We've offered some financial contributions to all of our children towards either school, a wedding, or a house down payment. Olivia has asked for help paying for her wedding. The wedding is in the beginning of August. A few months ago, Olivia asked my wife if she could use the dress for her wedding, and my wife gave her the dress so Olivia could get it fitted with plenty of time. Tuesday, Olivia asked me to go with her to pay some vendors. One of the stops was the tailor shop for a final fitting and to pay the seamstress. Olivia was really nervous, and I figured it was just some usual pre-wedding jitters and excitement. The dress Olivia came out in was not at all her mother's dress. It was a completely different dress, with parts of her mother's gown added to it. She took the straps, the sash, the train, and the embroidered top skirt and had it added to this new dress. I was befuddled for a bit and then asked what the hell this was. Olivia's reasoning was that she was the last of our kids to get married and there wasn't anyone else to wear it, and she made sure to instruct that they keep the original dress to be returned to her. I told her that's not the same and she knows it, and the dress was never hers to do with what she wanted. I asked the seamstress for the rest of my wife's dress and had Olivia tell my wife in person what she had done. My wife was devastated. I have since canceled the payments I made that day and told her I won't be paying another cent to her wedding. She and her fiancé can figure it out. Our youngest daughter thinks I've gone overboard, knowing Olivia planned her wedding with our help in mind, and without it, she can't finish paying for everything. Olivia's future in-laws also agree with that. They can't afford to help and suggested I should pay, and then we should just go low contact with Olivia. I told them both that Olivia took something irreplaceable from her mother for her own vanity. I know we originally offered help with the wedding, but I think Olivia's actions warrant canceling that offer. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. Thank you everyone for the responses. My wife and I will look more at them tomorrow and discuss the subject further. I just want to address a misconception. We have not gone low or no contact with Olivia. Her in-law suggested it, and that is insane. My wife's initial reaction to finding out Tuesday was to not go to the wedding. That was said in anger and not a done deal. It'd probably depend a lot on Olivia's handling until then as well. Taking her dress she paid for would hurt our relationship with her just as much as not paying for anything else, which is why we are discussing our options and skimming comments for things we have not thought of and are doable. Update. My wife and I are reading as many comments as we can. She appreciates the concern and support. For those saying the dress wouldn't be worn again anyway, she has this to say about it. She said, "It's not about whether or not it should be worn again. If none of my children asked to wear it, I still would keep the dress for me. My mother taught me everything I know about sewing, and we spent months picking out fabrics and doing trial and error practice dresses as we made mine. It was mine. It was one of my most prized possessions that held incredible memories for me. I have thought of having it put in my casket with me because once I'm gone, the person it mattered to is gone. However, I would have worn it again. Our 40th anniversary is in a couple of years, and I was very much looking forward to recreating our photos. It may seem like I'm choosing my dress over my daughter. I'm not. It is her deceit, indifference, and her blatant lack of remorse that I am hurt most by, and having a hard time with. It is the underhanded ways she thought to address the issue. It is a fact that she will not apologize and have a conversation with me, but is only worried about the rest of her wedding items being paid for and pinning it until after her honeymoon. I did not raise her to be like that. I would have loved to help her make designs for the dress she picked out if she had asked, and she knows this. I have never denied her help in her life, nor has our help come with conditions." And that was what my wife said. Today, we'll take my wife's dress to the seamstress that has the Franken dress to see what can be repaired. My wife has said the sash and train are most likely lost as the fabric of the gown was cut and the seams undone properly. I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not up on sewing lingo. Unfortunately, even if it can be restored or parts of it, Olivia is currently not wanting to give up the dress after the wedding. She wants to keep hers and is imploring her mother to understand since she kept her wedding dress for so long. We don't want to lose our relationship with our daughter, but we both agree there needs to be consequences, and there isn't really any moving forward if Olivia isn't willing to budge on anything. So I've got to agree with OP's final sentences there that nothing's moving forward unless Olivia starts doing something and talking to people and taking initiative and budging. The ball's in her court, and the timer is counting down to her wedding. And I feel as the clock ticks down till death do us apart, I feel that gives her impetus because the wedding's approaching and things aren't moving. So I feel like that's going to get her off her ass. And I've never been married, I don't have kids, but, regardless of all that, if something has sentimental value to it and someone ruins it, then you're naturally going to be mad at that person. And also, as Opies mentioned, she wants to keep it, she wants to be buried with it, she wants to rewear it on the 40th. So I don't feel like OP and the wifey here are being the a-holes if they want to not pay for the wedding. I think maybe there is some sort of compromise, or there definitely needs to be a consequence, but if they don't want to pay for it after what she did, and the fact that she's not showing remorse for it, and not recognize that she did something wrong, well, that's on Olivia, in my opinion. But anyway, next story. Story number 2. OP's girlfriend makes an evil prank. I spend a lot of time with my girlfriend, and we know each other very well. I've had some relationship issues in the past, so I am very forward and communicative because of situations that I've been in past relationships. Also, I am irrationally afraid of clowns. I have to emphasize the irrational part. My dad used to watch scary movies when I was a kid, and It was one of his favorite movies. This movie has had such an impact on my life that I have been to the hospital for panic attacks because of incidents with clowns, in which my girlfriend was there for. We went to a haunted house, and long story short, I was very affected by the clown portion. Ultimately, I say this to say that she knows of my fear and the effect it has on me. We had a pretty big argument over her not working the past month, and she brought up a feeling of stagnation and depression, and I attributed it to her unemployment, as in my experience while working sucks. Being productive is a very big driver in motivation and overall mental health. I am a very blunt and forward person and struggle a bit with empathy, so looking back on it, I was a bit rude, and she took this as me saying she was lazy and nonchalant about her career. Ultimately, I'm not concerned about that. While I do want her to be successful, I more want her to be happy. I assume she felt attacked, and instead of communicating this to me and us working it out, she internalized it and has taken to retaliation. After a long night of socializing with our friends, we went back to my apartment. She turned on a movie, and we sat together watching it for a while. I drifted asleep and was soon awoken by her in a full clown Halloween costume, and this was one of the most terrifying and frightening experiences I may have ever had. Falling asleep with someone I'm completely vulnerable and have a lot of trust for to be awoken by my true worst fear sent me to a full-fledged panic attack. I couldn't breathe, in my own home nonetheless, and was paralyzed by fear. She not only targeted my weaknesses, but continued tormenting me while I hyperventilated, and I was soon in tears, curled up on the floor, struggling to breathe. After what felt like years, truthfully 5 minutes, she took off the costume trying to confront me and bringing me an inhaler, but started saying this was how I made her feel after speaking about her not having a job. I really love her. We felt like such a perfect match, but to attack me so personally and without communication of the underlying issue prior, I have truly lost all trust for her. I told her to leave me the F alone and get out of my house. Obviously, this went over poorly, but I have never felt so betrayed by someone I loved before. She hasn't spoken to me for 2 weeks since, despite my efforts, and I'm truly exhausted in trying. Am I the a-hole? Do I deserve this, or should I move on? Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Not the a-hole. Time to get rid of the GF and move on. You may have been blunt in how you expressed yourself, but she was cruel." Then User 2 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. So your girlfriend is an abusive a-hole and she knowingly triggered your panic attack? Break up. You said she hasn't spoken to you in 2 weeks. Stop trying. You are better off without that abusive a-hole in your life." And finally, User 3 commented and said, "Not the a-hole. As a woman, mom, and grandma, I'm telling you to never see this person again. To use your greatest fear against you is evil. There's no coming back from that. You deserve so much better. Please do everything you can to heal. Treat yourself, care for yourself, because this was awful." Update. This was definitely premeditated. I spoke with one of her friends who dates a good buddy of mine, and she spilled a lot of tea on the situation. Of course, underlying issues I contributed to led to this, but it was intended as a prank. I did have the chance to speak with her, but it certainly didn't end up the way I envisioned it. She planned this out, bought a cheap costume, and intended to prank me as a, and I quote, lesson. Well, her lesson brought up a lot of childhood trauma for me, and I don't have much of a support system for those things. So I broke up with her once I heard her side of the story, and she was very frustrated. She cursed at me and swore no one would love such a crappy person, and the irony of the situation only but made me laugh, and I realized maybe she could find a job in her newly found free time. In the past few days, I've decided to seek counseling and therapy for a lot of the trust issues, and ultimately I hope to work on my fear. Thank you all for your responses. What was the ex-girlfriend thinking? A lesson? That's just pure evil. She is evil. Yes, OP mentioned that they can be somewhat blunt and direct sometimes, and while that's something that OP needs to work on, maybe she knows that behavior, maybe she's recognized it, I'm not excusing it, but also, but regardless of that, she acted like a child and internalized it and didn't want to talk like adults. You don't have to talk about it right now. You can sit on it, come back tomorrow. And then also, the ex decided to exact revenge, like a child, not like an adult. Really, we don't need to keep talking about this one because everybody and their grandma knows why this is wrong and what was done wrong here. That's just disgusting. But thankfully, this didn't get dragged out or anything like that. And OP's going to therapy, yay! And the trash has been disposed of. Anyway, next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for saying I'm second-guessing having a baby with my husband after he asked for a paternity test? I, 26F, and my husband Alex, 27M, have been married for a year. Recently, I found out I was pregnant. This was not planned. However, since we got married, we have not been using protection every time we got intimate, and I'm currently not on any birth control. My guess is that I'm only a few weeks along. I haven't seen a doctor yet. Anyway, I told him when he got back home from work yesterday. I personally was very happy about it because I've always wanted to be a mom. I'm pretty sure I was all smiles when I told him, and I thought he would be too once he found out the news. And let me add that he's been neutral on having kids. Well, my assumption was wrong. Immediately, he gets super upset and asks me how in the hell this could happen. I explained to him that while it was sudden, we hadn't been using protection every time, so it wasn't that surprising. I thought he would have understood, but for some reason, he didn't. After a few minutes of back and forth, he demanded a paternity test and told me there was no way it was his. I was hurt and insulted, and let me be very clear that I did not and will never cheat on my husband. I also have never given him any reason for him to be suspicious about me cheating on him either. I was so taken aback that he doubted my loyalty enough to ask for a paternity test. And I told him I couldn't believe he was seriously asking me for that. He said that I wasn't helping my case, and that if I had nothing to hide, then I would take the test and prove my loyalty to him. I honestly can't remember all that I said, but I ended up saying something along the lines of, if you're doubting me and my loyalty so much that you think I cheated on you and got pregnant with someone else's baby, then I don't think I want one with you anymore. I don't want to be tied to someone who clearly doesn't trust me. And then after that, he blew up at me and accused me of cheating once again. It was a big argument, and he said I was being crappy, dismissing his concerns and saying that asking for a paternity test was valid. In the end, I agreed to the test, but said that I stood by my words. We haven't spoken since the argument, and he's currently at work. Later, I went to my friend for advice, and she said that while he was out of line for accusing me of cheating, I shouldn't have said that to him over one of his valid concerns, and that clearly he had a reason to feel that way about the situation. I cannot fathom what made him feel like I was cheating on him. I was so hurt that he would insult me like that and accuse me of doing something so disgusting when I thought we were supposed to have trust in each other. But am I the a-hole for saying what I did? Edit. A lot of people are suggesting he got a secret vasectomy that failed, and that did cross my mind. During the argument, I did ask if he got a vasectomy or was infertile, and that's why the baby couldn't be his. But he dismissed that and continued saying it couldn't be his, without providing me a solid reason. So in that regard, I really have no idea what to say. Edit number 2. I feel I should elaborate on the neutral about kids part regarding my husband. I told him while we were still dating that no kids was a deal breaker for me. He said that was fine because his stance on it was that if we ever have kids, it's fine. If something happens and we don't, it's fine. I'm calling that neutral since I don't know what else to call it. So when I told him I was pregnant, I thought he would be fine with it like he said. But apparently, he just changed his mind about that and didn't tell me. And also, I have no issues with men wanting paternity tests. I just had an issue with him blatantly accusing me of being a cheater with no solid proof to back it up along with it. Update. Hi everybody, this isn't going to be a super crazy update saying we got the test back and you got a secret vasectomy, etc., but it's kind of a long one. This might be a long post, so yeah, buckle up. First, thank you for everyone's kind words and advice. It was all super helpful, including the criticism, because it really made me reflect on my behavior and how I handled the situation. On top of that, I'm so sorry that I didn't really respond to any comments. There were a lot just coming in nonstop and it was a little overwhelming. Moving on, after I made that post and he came home from work, I cooked him his favorite dinner and let him relax a bit before I calmly approached the subject again. I told him that I was happy to do the paternity test, just that I was a little hurt that he would accuse me of cheating on him because I loved him a lot and would hate to make him feel that way. I also apologized for what I said. I asked him if he was just overwhelmed or scared from the news, and that's why he accused me like he did. He said that wasn't it, and that was genuinely his biggest concern. He then told me he wasn't willing to talk to me, say anything else, or negotiate about anything until after we get the test done. I asked if he was sure, and he practically yelled at me, telling me to drop the subject for now, so I did. And so, things have been super tense. I'd been scrolling through comment after comment for what feels like forever, and a lot of you said he was cheating. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and chalk it up to him being told he was infertile or something, but I ended up getting a really bad sinking feeling in my gut that I should check his phone. I never wanted to be the type of person that goes through their SO's phones obsessively for no reason, but my gut has never really steered me wrong, so I did it last night while he was sleeping. I snuck his phone off his nightstand and went out to the living room. And after looking, he's cheating on me. And if that wasn't bad enough, it is indeed with my friend I mentioned in the last post. Like a lot of you said, I guess it does make sense now that I think about it, but I'm still really shocked. I'd never been suspicious of their relationship before, but after reading the comments, I realized her reaction was a red flag. I went through their text messages, and from what I can tell, it's only been going on for a few months and started after we got married. But really, I only focused on the text messages from right after I told him I was pregnant, and he texted her saying things like, "I don't know what I was thinking when I decided to F her without a condom. She says it's mine, of course, but I swear to God it better not be. I'll be happy if it isn't. Obviously, I don't want a kid with her. I'd rather be with you than be stuck with her. I know I should have been careful, and I don't care if she thinks I'm a jerk or an awful husband right now." And by the way, this was his reply when my friend told him that I came to her about the situation. So yeah, those were just a few messages, but their conversations were hard to read, and I ended up crying a lot. I screenshotted the messages, sent them to myself from his phone, deleted the text messages on his phone so it looked like he'd never sent me anything, and then deleted the screenshots, and deleted that from the recently deleted folder. I also went on his laptop to check if they were deleted there too. From his text messages, I can gather that he did not have a secret vasectomy that failed, nor does he think he is sterile since he said himself that he should have been more careful and he doesn't know what he was thinking. I don't think he'd be saying that if he thought he was infertile. I also want to say that yes, he knows I'm not currently on birth control, and he was the one that decided to not use a condom, not me. I just agreed. I did not pressure him. At first, he was pulling out, but occasionally he wouldn't. I don't know why he would continue not wearing a condom occasionally after the affair started. I'm guessing it was because telling me he no longer wanted to go without protection every time, no matter what, would make me suspicious. But basically, that's it for now. I'm not going to confront him about cheating right away. I'm going to get the test, then confront him and tell him I want a divorce along with the test results. I mean, that's currently my plan, but my mind is also all over the place, so maybe that's not the best way to do this? I don't know. It's like 6 a.m., I feel like crap, and I haven't gotten any sleep. Also, I almost forgot to mention that I am going to get an STD test just to be safe, and I think I'm going to get an abortion just because I don't want my first full-term pregnancy to be literal hell when it should have been a happy experience. But thank you to everybody congratulating me. It means a lot. The next update will probably be after the paternity test or whenever I feel like I need to update. Wow, this story was compact and depressing. I mean, we've gotten this quite a few times, but it's just so unfortunate that not only is her husband cheating, but it's with her best friend, right? She's been betrayed, can't go to the friend, and she's been betrayed again, can't go to the hubby. And then there he goes indirectly snitching on himself by blatantly accusing her of cheating, and it makes you wonder, maybe he's doing it. Maybe he's projecting. But that's it for now, and I'm sure OP will update whenever she feels like it. But I think she's got a decent plan ahead of her. Like, take those test results and shove it in his face and be like, a divorce? Don't want the baby, don't want you. And she doesn't mention what she's gonna do with the best friend, but I hope it involves shooting her out of a very large cannon. Anyway, next story. Story number 4. My 28F boyfriend's 30M ex hid a note about his cleaning and dating habits right before they broke up, and I just found it. How do I talk to him about cleaning habits without him feeling like I'm using his ex's words against him? Throwaway account, because I don't want my boyfriend to find this. I-28F and my boyfriend 30M, who we will call Steve, have been together for 2 years and have been living together for 8 months. I was cleaning our apartment when I found a note in the back of a cabinet, and for context's sake, I will copy it below, and it said, "Dear Steve's future girlfriend, I know it's you reading this because he'd never clean back here. I'm putting this here because I'm leaving him soon and want to warn you about him. 1, he will not clean. 2, he will not listen. 3, he will make everything feel like it's your fault. It's not your fault. He's just an incompetent man. I'm leaving him, and I suggest you do the same. Best wishes, Natalia." I read the note and brought it to show it to him and hear his response, and he immediately ripped it up and said not to listen to it, that she was crazy and untrustworthy. I told him the fact that he hasn't found it in like 5 years since they broke up is a red flag to me, because it does mean he's never cleaned back there, and that he's been cleaning less and less since I moved in. He told me that it wasn't a problem before the note, and this is just his ex continuing to manipulate and ruin his life, and I was letting it work. We continued to argue along the same lines, and I eventually left to spend the night at a friend's place. Steve has been a great boyfriend so far. He gets along with my family, he has given me gifts and flowers, and always tells me how much he loves me. He's not wrong that the cleaning hasn't really been brought up before. The note made me realize it had been less and less, and that we needed to have a full conversation. He texted me afterwards saying he's sorry that I felt like I had to leave, but that it's an a-hole move for me to take a note over our 2-year relationship and to leave him and our pets alone. I don't know what to do or what to believe right now. I'm contemplating trying to find and reach out to Natalia. Her name in real life is pretty unique, so I think I could find her. Steve thinks I should come back home and let it go, that his past shouldn't affect our future. I feel like I could be the a-hole because everything Steve has said about Natalia does make it sound like she was manipulative and petty throughout their relationship, but I don't know what to trust. Edit. I realized I didn't clarify enough about the points, especially the cleaning, and I thought I would add it here. When we moved in together 8 months ago, the cleaning was 50-50. Since then, he's been doing less and less things, and I'd say it's at like 70-30, maybe 60-40 if he listens to me right away. It depends on the week. I have to remind him to do things like bring his plates to the sink or take out the trash, and I didn't have to before. The dishes will pile up unless I do them, to the point that he's had leftover food mold on the plates. I am not a confrontational person, so I was just asking him to fix it when it came up. And the note made me reflect on it more and to try and have an actual full conversation. And I will say, I didn't feel listened to when I talked to him about it. I tried to use the note to start a conversation about cleaning, and he got so stuck on that I was listening to his ex instead of him, that he wouldn't listen to what I think are valid concerns. He thinks I'm letting the note have confirmation bias, so no matter what he says, I'll think he's in the wrong. Also, I didn't leave him permanently. This all happened yesterday, and I only spent one night at a friend's house because I didn't feel like our conversation was going anywhere last night, and he wouldn't let me sleep until I let it go. I'm going back today and wanted to get advice and feedback before I do. Edit number 2. I appreciate all these comments with advice. I'm heading back to our place now, and my plan is to first apologize for immediately bringing him the note without thinking of his feelings, and validate that it is hard to have an ex's message found. With that being said, you all are right that I've been letting the cleaning stuff get away. I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to ask him repeatedly to clean. It was pointed out to me that he should have cleaned the shelves during his move from his ex's place, and the fact that it hasn't been touched in 5 years is forcing me to take the note seriously. I don't want to throw away 2 years, so I'm going to ask him to come up with some clear cleaning expectations with me and designated chores. I will make it clear that cleaning is absolutely a deal breaker for me. It's his decision on how he wants to respond. I'll try to update you all. Again, thank you so much for the the advice. Update. Well, I followed your advice from the last post and tried to have a calm discussion with Steve. When I apologized for confronting him with the note, he seemed to take that as an admission of guilt and refused to listen to anything else. I had come up with a list of specific instances of not cleaning like many of you suggested, and he said I was using lists just like his manipulative ex did. So yeah, the crazy ex thing you all said was a red flag was definitely true. When I realized the conversation wasn't going anywhere, he even tried to block me from leaving. That's when I knew it was done and left immediately, 2 years down the drain. But I'm glad I had the wake-up call before it was too late. I will let him cool off, and then I will ask my brother to come with me to grab my things while he's not there. He has a strict work schedule, so I think it'll work out. I am planning on leaving a note there, but probably a little longer with the advice to not show it to him. And I'm leaving it in the exact same place, so if he doesn't learn his lesson about cleaning, it'll come to haunt him. All he has to do is clean. The biggest surprise out of all of this is that I didn't reach out to Natalia, she reached out to me. Apparently, he borrowed his friend's phone to call her screaming that she's ruining his life still. The fact that she blocked him and he still had her number memorized just further confirms he was the crazy ex, not her. Natalia found me on social media and wanted to make sure I was okay, and especially was concerned that he'd gaslight me like he tried with her. I thanked her for leaving me the note and saving me time, and we scheduled coffee for Thursday afternoon. I wanted to thank you all again for the advice, especially the person who posted the Love is Respect website. I took the healthy relationship quiz after our conversation, and it wasn't great. You called out how he was weaning me into an unhealthy relationship so well. For now, my friend said I could stay until I find a new place. And I have emergency savings and a decent job, so I'm in a privileged place when it comes to this messy breakup, and I'm just trying to feel grateful for that. Then in the comments section, one user said, "So what is your experience with number 2 and 3 of Natalia's note? Did you see some truth in her words there with your own past experiences with Steve? He does listen to me, I think. Like when he gets me flowers, he knows my favorite. We have some hobbies in common and love to talk about them. I feel like the most he's not listened in is in this situation, because he refused to get past the fact that I'm listening to his ex over him. And that being said, since we moved in together, I do feel like he's putting in less effort when it comes to starting conversations or initiating quality time. As for number 3, this is hard for me to answer. I think I can be a people pleaser and tend to think things are my fault anyway, but he's never directly said, "That's your fault," when it comes to conflict or anything. Then OP responds to the issues she has with her boyfriend's cleaning after showing him the note and said, "Thank you for your feedback. I'm looking for a balanced perspective, so I appreciate this comment. I did have an issue with his lack of cleaning and have asked him repeatedly to clean up after himself, and it really hasn't improved. I agree that I should have sat down to have this full conversation about it earlier instead of using this note to do so. I'm questioning our relationship based on his response to the note, not the note itself, as he raised his voice a bit. Also, other people commented about the letting me go to sleep thing, and I'm now realizing that's not okay." Update number 2. As you can tell by my original post, I like to do things right away. It was definitely a mistake to bring him the note right away, but doing the things I did this morning right away was not a mistake, as it allowed me to save my pets. First, I want to respond to the comments saying I broke up a 2-year relationship over a note and chores. No, I broke up a 2-year relationship because when I tried to come up with solutions to an unequal situation, his response was to yell and try to convince me that there was no problem except me. The final straw was when he physically blocked me from leaving the house after he was screaming at me. That is not okay, and no one should stay with a man who responds to conflict like that. Now onto the actual update. I wound up texting the post to Natalia last night, and she thought it was great. She, like some of you, asked me about the pets. For context, one of the things Steve and I connected on was our love for little creatures. It's why I thought he was such a great guy, because if he could take such intricate care of his lizard, he could do the same with me. Well, I was very wrong. He has one lizard he bought before me, and then we both bought 2 frogs together. I have a snake I brought with me when I moved in. I was planning on waiting until he cooled down to grab my things and the frogs and the snake, thinking he would never hurt them. But Natalia changed my mind. She said he could get destructive when he's mad, and was concerned about the safety of my little guys. And I immediately knew I couldn't wait until later this week, and reached out for a meeting with the landlord for early this morning. I wound up FaceTiming with Natalia last night, and we had a long discussion. Natalia is a lawyer and told me that in our state, landlords are required to let me get out of the lease I signed in cases of domestic violence. She also told me that his yelling, gaslighting, and refusing to let me leave are all types of abuse. It's definitely hard for me to sit with that, but the Love is Respect relationship quiz helped me also realize that a bit more last night. Apparently, his constant messaging and control over what I wore and when were also signs of abuse too. Anyway, this morning Natalia volunteered to come talk to the landlord with me alongside my brother. As soon as he heard the word lawyer, he was on top of it and said I could break the lease, but would still have to pay for all of August even though I'm leaving 3 days early. I felt like that was fair. He also messaged Steve to say the apartment needed to be empty for emergency maintenance all day today so I could pack my things. Steve messaged back that he was at work all day and wouldn't be home until 6 p.m. When I got into the apartment, it was a mess. He had broken my dishes that I had brought with me on the ground and left the shards laying about. My clothes were ripped up and scattered around the room. It was disgusting and heartbreaking. He left his lizard alone, but opened the tank doors for our frogs and my snake. Luckily, the frogs were still chilling in their enclosure, but my snake had gotten loose. This made me most sad, as she could have gotten cut on the broken glass. I feel so fortunate that she was just hiding in the closet corner and I was able to pack her up safely in her enclosure again. All of my things are packed and I'm writing this as my brother drives me back to my friend's house right now. Natalia told me that she actually left 3 notes, one in the cabinet, one on the underside of the vacuum, and one in the crumb catcher of the toaster. While we were there, we checked to see if the notes were still there. The one on the vacuum was, but it looks like Steve did clean out the crumb catcher at least once in the past 5 years, and he never told me he had already found a note in our conversations, so it caught me by surprise. Natalia and I left the vacuum note as is and replaced the one in the cabinet. I wasn't comfortable leaving my name on a new note, so my addition was a handout on healthy versus unhealthy relationships, and a QR code to the quiz that woke me up. Natalia said if he didn't find those notes in 5 years, especially after the move, he probably won't find them again. I'm inclined to agree, especially given he did find one, but then didn't even clean up the rest of the house to see if there were any more. Steve doesn't make sense to me, and seeing the state of the apartment really woke me up to the fact that I have no idea who he is. The Steve I knew would never put animals in danger, but I don't think I ever really knew Steve. Also, to the people saying it's pathetic that I broke up my relationship because of chores in Reddit, I encourage you to reflect on the subtle ways that abuse starts. This Reddit thread woke me up to it and gave me the resources to get out safely before it got any worse. I also made an appointment for a therapist. I'm very lucky that my job has good insurance, so I should be able to work through this relationship, and I am hoping to focus on boundaries and my people-pleasing habits, so I never find myself in this situation again. And to the people wishing that Natalia and I would get together, we had a good laugh about it. Natalia is engaged to a wonderful man who cleans, listens, and reflects. She said there's a phenomenon that when people break up with their awful ex, their soulmate can quickly follow. I'm hoping that's true. Regardless, I do think I got a good friend out of this, especially since Natalia is a snake mom too. So, this is my final update. I hope if you learn anything from my experience, it's that abuse doesn't start right away. First, there's love bombing, gifts and pretty words, and then slowly they test how much you will put up with. And you should never have to put up with anything, especially moldy freaking plates. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, Natalia received the assignment Demonstrate Sisterhood and aced the test. I'm so sorry that Steve proved all of us, including Natalia, right on how crappy he is. Can you go after him for the destruction of property? Honestly, I just want to put this behind me. Most of the clothes were the ones that he bought me, and I thought they were sweet gifts, but looking back on it, I'm realizing he pushed my style out for the one that he prefers. He liked to dress me exactly the way he wanted, so I'm okay leaving the clothes behind. I can get new dishes and new clothes that fit me, and I have my pets, and that's all that matters to me. Then user 2 commented and said, OP, you said that the Steve you knew would never put animals in danger, but you didn't think you ever really knew him. That really freaks me the F out in these posts. The idea that you can know someone enough to start working on a life together, but not actually know them. It makes me wonder what % of abusers masking do it specifically on purpose to trap someone, and what % just happen to have nothing trigger their worst instincts and behaviors. It's hard to imagine the bulk of stealth abusers being patient masterminds working on a long con. Then user 3 commented and said, You mentioned that Steve did clean out the crumb catcher at least at one point in the last 5 years. Steve probably didn't have a choice for that one. The paper and crumbs mix would have started smoking at some point. And finally, Opie elaborated on her snake and said, She is a Western hognose. She's the cutest. Her name is Raspberry because she's pinkish in color. 1. Hognose is a funny name for a snake type. 2. I didn't know snakes come in pink. And 3. That second to last commenter that we read shared a concern that I had that you can live with these people and, impregnate them or be impregnated by them and you don't even know them. I don't know why I used the word impregnated so many times, but I will stop. I've hit my quota and my maximum limit for the video. But I mean, it is really crazy that those people can get that far just due to circumstances. Maybe some are evilly plotting, but I feel like they aren't the most patient people. So I don't know. It is crazy that, and we've seen so many stories where, we've been together for 5 years, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and I've never seen this of him. And then it just triggers a crazy domino effect of craziness. I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that one. But anyway, Opie's out, the frog's out, the snake's out, and now she's best friends with Natalia, her not lesbian lover. Sorry, guys, we couldn't ship them this time. I know, you're so disappointed. Anyway, next story. Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for letting you know I am divorcing you by sending you a thread on the website that you use to ignore me? Hi, Stefan. Maybe you will finally listen. And if you're wondering if you can just speed home and stop me from doing this and leaving, it's too late. I'm sending you this after I've already loaded everything in the car and left. Don't worry, I've spoke with our landlords and took my name off the lease, and I've set up a direct deposit for the next month's rent. And after that, you're on your own, buddy. I guess you're wondering why, and I'm guessing you'll act like you're completely blindsided, right? Because you've done absolutely nothing wrong, and you're a great husband and father-to-be, aren't you? Well, buddy, let me break it down for you in a language you understand. I, 29F, have been married to my husband, 35M, for 5 years, and we've been together for nearly 10. On paper, everything seemed fine, but in reality, our marriage has been anything but. I've reached my breaking point, and I need to know if I'm the one in the wrong here. From the beginning, my mother-in-law has been a nightmare. She made everything about her from day one. At our wedding, she wore white, claiming it was a family tradition. It wasn't. She constantly criticizes me, from my cooking to my appearance. I'll never forget the time she called me fat at a family gathering right in front of everyone. And what did my husband do? Nothing. Not even a single word to defend me. It didn't stop there, though. She has accidentally destroyed my belongings, including my grandmother's necklace, which she threw out because it looked like cheap costume jewelry. And she's gone out of her way to make me feel small and unwelcome in my own home. But every time I tried to talk to my husband about it, he'd brush it off, saying I was overreacting or being too emotional. And then there's my husband. He's always on Reddit, constantly giving strangers relationship advice, which is laughable considering how he treats me. He spends more time rating women's boobs on Reddit than talking to me, literally. And just so you know, the last pair he rated weren't a 4 out of 10, they were a 10 out of 10. Yeah, he's got plenty of time to do that, but can't be bothered to remember anything about my life. He'll forget my birthday, our anniversary, even simple things like what I'm working on or what's important to me. But he has perfect memory for his work schedule and things that matter to him. When we fight, he becomes incredibly hostile and always throws in a sarcastic "buddy" at the end of his sentences, like I'm some acquaintance he can barely tolerate. And he never cleans. The house, the dishes, laundry, you name it, it's all on me. It's like he thinks being an adult is optional, as long as he's got his job and his Reddit account. The final straw came a few weeks ago. I am 5 months pregnant with our first child, a daughter. My mother-in-law started making comments about how she will have to whip the girl into shape, and how she'll have to raise her to be tough because I'm too soft. When I told my husband that I didn't want his mother to have too much influence on our daughter, especially with the way she treats me, he just laughed it off and said his mother means well, and that I was overthinking it. But the moment that truly broke me was when we were talking about future children, and my husband suggested that his mother should watch our daughter while we work. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, especially considering how his mother treats me, and he snapped, and he called me paranoid, and said I should get over it, because his mother was going to be a part of our daughter's life, whether I liked it or not. This is the same woman who believes corporal punishment is okay. I've seen her hit my husband's nephew for the smallest things, and no one does anything about it. It's like they're all living in some kind of cult, and I'm finally waking up to the reality of what's going on. If he wouldn't stand up for me, how could I expect him to stand up for our child? I started to fear for what kind of environment our daughter would grow up in, a place where she might be belittled or bullied by her own grandparents, with a father who wouldn't do anything to stop it. Oh, and did I mention that he missed our first ultrasound? His mother needed him to help her with something urgent. It turns out to be fixing her Wi-Fi. Her Wi-Fi. He chose that over seeing our daughter for the first time. That told me everything I needed to know about where I stand in his life. So I packed up and left. I'm done living like this. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I've already contacted a lawyer. You can't scare me into complying anymore because I have all those text messages. You know exactly which ones I'm talking about. So, Stefan, I wish you all the best in your future marriage with your mother and the women of Reddit whose boobs you don't even deserve. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for leaving my husband after he neglected me for years, let his mother mistreat me, and made me fear for our future daughter's safety? Small update. Well, Stefan has seen this post, and he is mad that apparently one of you found him based on the rate my boobs thing. He has deleted his account, and for any purposes, I want to clarify that I left out any actual incriminating information that could lead to doxing him. Any and all people who are pretending to know me or have any incriminating information about me are lying. I'm not from South Carolina, and I'm not moving in with another guy, and I am also not sleeping around. Update. Some people on Reddit have been pretending to know me and have been spreading false claims. They've said I'm a deadbeat who doesn't work and that Stefan has 2 jobs to support me. They even fabricated a story about a neighbor, who supposedly is a good friend of ours, saying I've been sleeping around and moving in with the guys I supposedly had affairs with. None of this is true. We don't live in South Carolina or the UK, and we're not friends with any of our neighbors. And I've never cheated on Stefan, and I work and make slightly more than him, just $1 an hour difference. I suspect these claims might be from trolls brigading or Stefan's friends trying to make me regret posting about this. As for now, I am currently safe and staying with family, which is all I am going to say for now. I'm working with my lawyer to ensure our safety, and that's all I can disclose at this time. Also, for women who find themselves in my situation and are dealing with a lease, consult with a pro bono lawyer who specializes in rental rights. That's what I did. They can give you advice specific to your region or country. In my case, I was able to move out because Stefan and I had both signed a lease contract and had completed the minimal rental period. After my free consultation, I worked with my landlords, who are a lovely older couple, to arrange my departure. So, don't be scared. Or I mean, you can be scared, but there are things you can do to protect yourself. Also, make sure to run a credit check on yourself. I did, and it's another issue I'm addressing. As for recent developments, there hasn't been much new. Stefan is clearly desperate. He and my mother-in-law have both had meltdowns and launched separate smear campaigns. My mother-in-law has spread false claims, including that I'm an unfit mother and that I've been abandoning my responsibilities. I don't plan to answer these claims publicly, and I'm collecting all evidence I have, especially since she has nothing to back up her accusations. But I have everything to back up mine. So no, Stefan, this is not going to be a he said, she said situation. He deleted his Reddit account too, claiming it was because of one person finding him. But then he told me a bunch of people sent him death threats, which seems impossible and contradictory. And he did send his friends to my post, and I think they sent me some unsavory DMs and comments, allegedly. Whenever I tried to talk to Stefan, he always made me feel like I was going crazy. Whenever I raised concerns or expressed feelings, he would dismiss them, belittle my emotions, and make me second-guess myself. For instance, I'd come home to find that he had invited people over without informing me in advance. When I brought it up, he'd insist that he had mentioned it earlier, even though I knew he hadn't. Another time, I planned a special meal and asked him for a specific dish, but he claimed I had requested something completely different. When I reminded him of what I actually asked for, he'd argue that I must have forgotten my own request. Stefan would also insist that he had completed tasks that I had actually done myself. For example, he would claim that he had handled a household chore when I was the one who actually took care of it. And when I pointed this out, he'd dismiss my recollection and insist that he had done it. Even in conversations about our relationship, Stefan would frequently deny things that he had said or done. If I brought up issues I had with his mother's behavior, he'd claim, "You never mentioned that before, you're just being overdramatic." And this made me question whether I had ever truly discussed these problems or if I was indeed overreacting. At one point, I was so convinced that I had early onset dementia or schizophrenia that I started to question my own sanity. I felt lost and confused, struggling to distinguish between reality and his version of events. I began to document our interactions just to keep track of what was actually going on. But Stefan would always find a way to twist things, saying, "You must be misremembering," even though I had clear evidence to the contrary. Feeling so powerless, I realized that sharing my story online was the only way to present my truth in a manner he couldn't manipulate. I wanted to ensure that there was a clear and unchangeable record of what had happened. Posting about my experience was a crucial step in reclaiming my voice and finding support from others who might understand my situation. It was a way to take control of my narrative after feeling so lost and doubting myself for so long. Thank you all for your support during this difficult time. So we have never gotten a story like this where they broke up via Reddit, or at least in the way that OP's doing it. Could you imagine him ignoring his partner for so long, and he says, oh, time to go on Reddit for the 12th time today. Let's see this thread after rating some boobs. And he's like, oh, this sounds familiar, and he keeps reading. Also, amongst many things, this story really showed the power of gaslighting to the point where OP was thinking, am I going insane? Am I crazy? Is he actually telling the truth here? So it's horrible what he was doing, but thankfully she's gone, she's out, and that's what really matters, and she's on the up and up. Anyway, next story. Story number 6. I, 22F, think I need to break up with my boyfriend, 23M, of 8 years. Throwaway account because I want to keep this separate from my main account. Wow. Okay, where to begin? We've been dating for 8 years. We met in high school and we have been together ever since. We've grown and changed with each other, miraculously, and our relationship has been amazing. We were always communicative to each other, always dotted on one another, had inside jokes that are years long, and have become so comfortable with who we are as a couple. Our relationship, by all means, is a wonderful one, but I guess I wouldn't be posting here if it was so wonderful, would I? As we've entered into adulthood, I started asking the bigger questions that I realized I wasn't really getting answers on. He's been against having kids, but I want kids. My biggest advice I received was to wait for his real answer when we were older because I asked these questions after dating for 4 years. I asked him what he wanted to do with his future, where he saw himself career-wise, and what he was feeling about who he was as a person, if he was changing and growing. To be honest, whenever we speak about these things, I always feel like it gets really quiet. He becomes shorter with his words, a lot of I don't knows. After asking questions many times, I got some answers once he's thought about it, but this scenario has always been regular for us. I'm asking bigger questions, trying to get feedback, and he gives little answers and asks to think about them. But we have always moved along. Next day, next season, we're really happy with each other. We cuddle and watch Netflix TV shows, go to the ice rink, have romantic dinners, and tell each other how much we adore one another. But those questions start to bother me. Why doesn't he answer them? Why doesn't he want to? Why doesn't he ask those about me? Is it necessarily bad that he doesn't want to ask? I mean, we're only in our 20s, but we've been dating for 8 years. The toss and turn was agonizing. I felt like I was waiting for an answer for a question I asked years ago, regardless of the timeline. I felt more and more pressure to have them answered because we've been talking about marriage. When I would forget that those questions were so important to me, everything was hunky-dory. We'd talk about where we would live, the animals we would have, and name them, the kinds of TV shows we'd watch on a weekly basis. I pushed the issues I had been feeling in my core back inside because I figured if I'm a patient girlfriend, a loving one, a supportive one, our relationship will get better. How long we've stayed together is a testament to our ability to grow together. We've done it this long, why wouldn't it continue happening? But it hasn't. It really hasn't, guys. And this last weekend, something snapped. We were looking for places to live. We had 3 appointments, and I was looking around the apartment, looking at the kitchen, looking at our bedroom, when we kissed each other goodbye after a post-appointment cuddle/nap, and I went back home. And I burst out crying in the car. I was sobbing. When I got home, I called my mom. She came over. I was broken. Something died. Something straight up died. I don't know what's going on, and I think I need to break up with him. I don't think this is the kind of change that I can ask of him. I don't think asking him to change is fair. It's not that I haven't been patient. I have. He has been giving me his answers to all of my questions. I just haven't been happy with what they are. The silence, the skirting around the topic, the I don't knows. I thought we could grow through any scenario, but moving in together put it all into perspective for me. I am not ready to move in with this guy. Earlier in the year, he told me he was all right with kids and with having them too. And after that conversation, such a huge flood of relief hit me that I think I spurred this season of ignorance. He answered my biggest question, so I was happy. But the reality is setting in. Does he actually mean that? Did he say that to appease my asking? He has told me that I'm the best thing to happen to him, that he loves me, and that I inspire him to be a better person, and that he's happy he's with me because he wouldn't know how to date anyone else at this point since we've been together for so long. I wish he had the motivation and drive and a goal for himself. I wish he thought about his future. I wish he was more excited about life, more positive about life. I wish he wasn't so angry at people and himself. I wish he approached his problems readily and openly. I wish he was more emotionally available. I wish I knew how to do this without destroying him, because I think it will. His family would all turn on him, I know it. We've been talking about marriage. We're looking at places to live together, and I just imploded. I imploded. My gut is telling me to do this, and it's never been wrong, but how? How on earth do I do this? Edit. Thank you everyone so much for your comments. All of them. I've read every one. I think after the initial hysteria and realization of what I was feeling and putting it into written word, that I've come to realize what I'm truly feeling. I will post an update after this weekend when I talk with him, and I will tell you how it goes. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Hi there, what you wrote really impacted me, and I would like to thank you for sharing that. I too have been feeling the same way as you in my own relationship, but I haven't been able to process the words. I don't really have advice. I haven't dealt with my situation, but I will say this. It is possible to grow from here. You are young, your future is bright, and you know what you want in life. You are too young to settle on the things that you will grow into. If you do break up, it won't be easy, but you sure as hell will make it through." There has been a quote that has been ringing through my head the past couple of days. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails. Explore, dream, discover. Mark Twain said that. I hope that you find what is best for you, OP. Thank you. I couldn't even read that entire quote. I started tearing up. There are two sides to me. The side that is firm in her decision, understands she made it long ago, and was waiting for the other half of me to wake up. Then the other side is the side that loves him, loves what we are, loves who he is, and is blissfully ignorant. Thank you for your encouragement. There is growth that can come from this, and I don't want to settle. I don't want to be unhappy. I just thought it was him for the longest time, and now it's not. I'll be okay, but holy crap, this is going to hurt, and I'm the one who's doing it. To him, his family, our friends. 8 years builds a huge network, and I'll be shutting part of it down. I'll recover. I know people will be okay, and I'll be okay, but causing hurt is just not what I do. But I can do it if it's for myself. Then user 2 commented and said, "OP, you mentioned somewhere that you wish he wasn't so angry at people and himself? There's something here. What is he angry about?" He gets angry at people online, angry at bad drivers on the road. He gets angry when he's competitive. He gets angry when things don't happen like they should. I've told him he needs to see someone about it, but he hates therapists. He has a lot of resentment in his heart. When it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's awful. He's never violent, but he raises his voice, curses, and flips things over sometimes, like controllers or folders. I've never felt right about it. Whenever he would start doing that stuff to me, I would put my foot down and let him know very clearly he is never to treat me that way. It's the single thing I've been unrelenting and strong about, and he promised me the next time it became a problem, he would see someone about it. But there have been little bursts that don't warrant a problem, but are enough to put me on the edge. This is a problem he doesn't want to address for painful reasons, I think. But it is definitely added to the problem of me not wanting to be with him in the long term unless he got help and figured it out. And finally, OP replied to a comment telling her she's not done growing and to be the best version of herself, to which OP said, "This is so real, and this is exactly why I posted on Reddit. And in a small way, even though I know he thinks I'm great too, I'd like to think that there's a best version of a partner out there for him too." Update. So, the big conversation happened on Friday, a day earlier than what I was expecting. After writing this post and speaking to trusted family and friends, I decided I didn't want to wake up like I had all week, feeling like crap anymore. I would open my eyes and just immediately feel that familiar pain in my chest. I wanted it to be over. He had been texting me normally in the week, so I knew he wasn't expecting this. It made it so much harder. That part wasn't easy, texting him back very plainly to avoid lying or leading him on. But I asked him if he'd like to meet on Friday, and he said he would love to. So I went over in the morning after running a few errands with my brother. He drove what he called the getaway car and said he'd pick me up when it was over. And let me tell you, it was so hard. His family was decorating the house for Christmas. As soon as I got there, his mother asked me to help drape some garland across the front porch, and I stood there with my my heart in my throat helping her out. As soon as I found a window, I walked into the house and found him in the kitchen. He was still in his pajamas. I asked him if we could talk in his room, and he said sure. He wrapped me in a hug and rubbed my back, and it took everything not to cry right then. And we walked upstairs to his room. I closed the door and gave him one last hug, a huge hug in the privacy of his room, and I took a breath and then asked if we could sit down. I sat crisscross and began. I told him that I had been in so much pain since we came back after looking at places to live together. I told him that I didn't think we should live together. I told him that was because I didn't think we should be together. I told him it wasn't his fault, that it wasn't that he did something wrong. I told him I felt like there was something wrong with our relationship, and that I knew moving in together wasn't the right choice for us, and ultimately committing to each other like that wasn't the right choice for me. I told him that I wasn't able to commit to him in that way when the choice came. I told him that it wasn't a smooth transition, that this decision came at me all at once like a freight train. I told him that I was sorry. He asked me why I was doing this, and he looked absolutely shocked. He told me he thought everything was perfect and that he didn't understand why I was saying this. And he asked me where we should go from here. I told him I wanted to talk this out since we've been together for so long. I told him I wasn't going to waver in my decision because I felt like it was the right choice to make, but I wanted to talk it out. Instead, he went to his dresser, got out of his pajamas, got into a change of clothes, grabbed his backpack, and left. His mother asked him for more Christmas help, but as far as I knew, he walked by her. I sat there in shock, I guess. Before he left, he said, "See you Saturday," because our friends are having a Friendsgiving, and I could feel the hysteria come on. It was like a tidal wave, the reality of what I had just done. It was like the very elegant, composed, logical reason I had for breaking up went right out the window. Every graceful approach I was going to take this conversation in just blinked on me. I was simply honest and raw, and now I felt like the crappiest person I had ever known. I got my shoes on and flew down the stairs, and his mother was asking me for more Christmas help, but in the first time in years, I ignored her and ran out the front door. And I was walking away from his house, and after I had reached the street, she came outside, and I could hear her step behind me, and she called out my name with the same type of urgency that you call out to someone as if they forgot something in the house. I didn't turn around, and she called out my name again louder, and I rounded the corner towards the rest of the neighborhood. I then called my brother and asked him to pick me up, and he was there in 2 seconds. The car was still moving as I opened the door and slid inside, and I was out of there. That was, by far, the hardest thing I've ever done. I was sobbing. My brother held my hand. It was loud, heartbreaking sobbing. I can't believe I had ended an 8-year relationship, but I did. I went home, and my family was all there. They all comforted me through it and told me their breakup stories of their first loves. That was Friday. Today, Monday, and I have to say, it was absolutely the correct decision for me to make. After the initial tears, hysteria, and destruction, I realized that I had needed to make that decision for a long time. I feel fuller, in a way, if that makes sense, and I'm excited for what's to come for me. Thank you all for your words of wisdom, your insights, and your support. I really appreciated all of your comments, and I read them a few times a day to give me strength in my down moments. I've gotten to the other side of this, and I appreciate all of your input. Edit. To be honest, I'm shocked again at the response. Thank you all, even the people who don't agree with my decision. If I were to respond to all of you and include every single detail of our relationship to try and justify myself, I think it would defeat the point of reading your honest responses, because that's what I will be dealing with going forward. I appreciate every comment I've gone through, and I've read them all. Thank you for your eyes and time spent giving your input. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "You sound extremely mature for 22 because you were with your boyfriend for 8 years. I imagine your lives were intertwined. Down the road, it's possible that you will miss him, miss the relationship, miss everything you two shared, and may feel like you've made a huge mistake. It's all normal to feel that way, and if you do, please do not hesitate to talk to your supportive family and friends." Yeah, I'm prepared for the idea that I will absolutely miss everything. I'm either really well adjusted or this is just a phase before I go back into awful feeling. Either way, in this clear mindset, I'm bracing for it and trusting my conviction. Then user 2 commented and said, "Oh man, I know exactly how you feel. I ended an 8-year relationship about 3 years ago, and when I broke the news to him, there was this loud scream in my head to stop, stop, stop. But after the hysteria settled, I knew I made the right choice. I was surprised by how quickly my ex moved on. I moved on too, though, which made me realize that perhaps he wasn't totally happy either. Good luck to you. Wow, I know what you mean about this screaming. It felt like there was a spirit inside of me throwing chairs around my head, screaming, "Why have you done this? Why would you? Stop! Go back! Take it back!" It was agonizing. Change is hard, but I had no idea about the mental warfare I would experience. I thought it was just all heartache, but thank you for the well wishes. And finally, Opie elaborated about her brother and said, "You're right. I didn't go Saturday. A small discovery through all of this is that my brother and I aren't particularly close. We've had a rough childhood with our dad, and he moved to Seattle out of college. Him holding my hand through all of this was the most brotherly thing he's done, and I will remember that forever. I really feel closer to him now." Well, this was, just from a storytelling perspective, amazing. I felt like I saw the series finale of a series, okay, and we were building up and waiting for the climax. This is good storytelling, folks. It's called building anticipation. And boy, did it happen. And Opie really painted her mindset well, and also painted it well for other commenters who were like, I didn't even know how to word what I was feeling, but thank you. But we've gotten a lot of stories on this channel, especially when I started out recording here, of just high school sweethearts eventually outgrowing each other, or at least one person outgrowing the other. It's unfortunately common just because who you are at 16 or 18 or even 21 when you started dating is not who you are at 25 or 30 or anything like that. Like, you just change, and that means that you may not overlap with your partner anymore, and that seems to be the case here. But anyway, next story. Story number 7. Am I the a-hole for unintentionally getting a midwife fired? Throwaway account for anonymity, and this also happened a few months ago, but I've recently been told I took things too far. I am active duty military. My wife and I began trying for a baby about 2 years ago after we got married, and after a few months, she got pregnant with our first child. About 6 weeks after she found out, I was deployed for a 6-month stint. Sadly, that meant I would miss all of her OB appointments except for the very first one to confirm she was pregnant. Early in her pregnancy, she decided using a midwife would give her a better birth experience, and I was totally on board because she's the one giving birth and I wanted her to feel 100% confident in the people assisting. It had also been decided that the people in the room, aside from medical staff, would be me for obvious reasons and one of our mothers. My mom lives about an hour away by car from the base that I'm stationed at, while her mom lives a 4-hour plane ride away. Ideally, her mom would be able to get there in time, but she loves my mom too and was okay with her being there if labor went fast and her mom couldn't make it in time. Fast forward to me getting back from the deployment and her being really close to giving birth, like doing a week close. She was supposed to have an OB appointment that I would be able to go to, but ended up going into labor very early on the morning of the appointment. We go to the civilian hospital and they confirm she's in active labor. I called her mom, who immediately booked a flight that would have gotten here at about noon. Then my mom, who came to the hospital a few hours later. A while later, the midwife comes in to see my wife and was rude from the start. My wife told her I was back from deployment and she calmed down a little, but was still clearly not happy I was in the room, especially once I started cracking jokes to try to distract my wife from the pain of the contractions. Then the midwife glared at me and told me to take this seriously and have respect for my wife while she's in pain. I thought her hostility was weird, but was more focused on my wife and doing all I could to support her. As it got closer to noon, my wife was almost 9 centimeters dilated, and so I decided not to go pick up her mom from the airport and had her take a cab instead, so I wouldn't have to leave for an hour to drive to the airport. When her mom did get to the hospital, I left the L&D floor briefly to go downstairs and pay the cab driver so her mom wouldn't need to. As the cab is pulling up, I got a call from my mom telling me the OB and midwife were there and the baby was coming fast. Of course, I rushed back up there after tossing some cash to the cab driver so her mom and I could be there for the birth. When I got back to the L&D floor, my mom was in the waiting room since she had to step out to make the phone call and also knew she would be waiting outside. I used the intercom to ask to be let back in, and to my surprise, I was denied entry. They said they had an order to not let me or anyone in to see my wife. That was really confusing, so I asked why and was just told I wouldn't be let in and not to tie them up on the intercom, or security would be called. So the three of us waited outside, since my wife didn't answer her phone as she was actively pushing our baby out. Well over 2 hours later, she was able to call me back and asked where I had been, and I told her the hospital staff wouldn't let me in, but I had been in the waiting room trying to get answers for almost 2.5 hours. Long story short, it was the midwife who told the desk staff that I wasn't to be let back in. She lied and said my wife had reported I was abusive and she didn't want me there. So not only did my poor wife have to give birth alone, and without me or her mom there for support, I missed the birth of my daughter. It meant a lot to me to be there, to see my baby come into the world, because I missed so much of the pregnancy, and that was ripped away from me because this awful woman didn't like that I never showed up to a single appointment the entire pregnancy, despite being told by my wife that I was deployed. So, with my wife's support, I filed a formal complaint about the midwife, and she ended up getting fired by the OB's office. My wife is naturally on my side, but some of our friends have said I was wrong to make such a big deal out of it and taking away the woman's livelihood. Was I the a-hole for reporting her, which caused her to lose her job? I'd like the perspective of people outside the situation. Edit. I took some advice and contacted JAG, military lawyers, to meet with an attorney about taking further steps. I have a meeting scheduled for Monday afternoon to discuss what can and should be done to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else in the future. Thanks to everyone who offered support, and screw those who DM'd me to tell me I'm garbage for being in the military and deserve to die because they think I hit my wife. You all have a place saved in hell. Edit number 2. Since some people are so caught up on me paying for my mother-in-law's cabs and the jokes I was making with my wife, I will clear it up. I made jokes because she asked me to distract her from the pain by making her laugh. We were both making jokes, not just me. I also paid for my mother-in-law's cab because my wife told me to make sure I went down and paid, and also because it was the right thing to do since she didn't choose to take the cab. That was my choice since it was last minute. Then in the comments section, one user said, "F that. Anyone that says you are the a-hole is not your friend or family, and they can kick rocks. That midwife was out of line. How dare she? I wish there was some way to give you back those moments. It's so unfair and unnecessary, and I don't understand why people need to be so mean." Yeah, aside from being mad about my wife having to go through it all alone, I'm mad that I wasn't the first one to hold my daughter. Our plan was for me to hold her first, then my wife, then whichever grandma won the coin toss. And yeah, the grandmas both decided to leave it up to a coin toss or rock, paper, scissors. Then OP elaborated on the wife and the baby now and said, "They're both doing great. My wife had a rough recovery the first month or so, but the baby was and is perfect. She's 9 weeks now, and I'm in love, and I can't wait to get home every day and see both of them." Then user 2 commented and said, "That crap could have gotten you court-martialed. No, what the midwife did was malicious and dangerous to you and your family. She deserves to be fired and worse." If it had been a military hospital, I would have been investigated for sure. Nothing would have been found, but it would have had career implications for sure. Then user 3 commented and said, "It sounds like the jokes set her off. Then she started power tripping. Midwives can act that way. I would file a complaint with the Board of Nursing and whatever licensing board midwives go through. Have some fun with it. Maybe even get an attorney. One thing we already know is the medical group won't stand behind her. I doubt the hospital will either. Go get her." My wife was laughing at the jokes, so she should have known that we were just having fun. We never found out the gender beforehand, so we had a running joke when we both suggested outlandish names for either gender, and I had a long list that I would pull from when she had a particularly painful contraction. My wife labored without pain meds, and I think she's amazing for doing that. I would have wanted all the drugs if I were having a baby. Then user 4 commented and said, "It sounds like the civilian hospital is in a military community also, so she should be somewhat acquainted with deployments and whatnot. And no, you're not the a-hole. You sound like a good husband who wanted to support his wife. To being denied entry because she had some hard-on is disgusting, and she deserved to be fired. I hope you received an apology from the OB." The OB was so apologetic. She assumed that I had to leave the room for some reason and just didn't make it back in time. From the time my wife was determined to be ready to push out when our daughter was born was only about 15 minutes. My wife is an absolute rock star and pushed for all she was worth, so the baby came quickly. It wasn't until after the OB learned I was locked out of the unit with both moms, and I don't blame the OB at all. Then user 5 said, "That midwife is awful and deserved to be fired. Don't feel bad for a freaking second. She assumed you were abusive and ruined a very delicate, vulnerable, and special moment for all of you. What was her excuse to not let in her mom? Was her mom suddenly abusive too?" According to the OB, she implied that she thinks all military members abuse their spouses, so she spoke up when my wife wouldn't for herself. But she had no answer for not letting my mother-in-law in. I wouldn't have been as upset if at least one of the moms was there, but she made sure no one was, and that hurts me because my wife deserved to be supported. And finally, user 6 commented and said, "Did your wife say anything after it was all over to her, or anyone for that matter, from the birth team or the hospital before you filed?" She said she fell asleep shortly after the birth because she was exhausted, and I totally understand that. Then she woke up about 45 minutes later and asked the nurses if they knew where I was, which is when one of them told her the midwife said no one was to be let in per my wife's request. She panicked for a minute and asked for her phone on the table, and that's when she saw all my missed calls. Most of the nurses were apologetic and said they had worked with the midwife for a long time and didn't have a reason to not believe her. And finally, the consensus in the comment section was that OP was not the a-hole and to seek legal counsel as well. Update. We met with the JAG attorney on Monday, and it seems like I have a good case for going after her license, as well as a possible defamation lawsuit. She's a certified nurse midwife, so she has a license that can be revoked or suspended. I'm not convinced it needs to be revoked altogether, but I do think she should be suspended for a while and forced to get more training in her field. The attorney JAG assigned to me is a parent herself and seemed genuinely appalled that someone would have to miss the birth of their child because a member of the medical staff used their influence to deny entry back into the maternity wing, especially when it's for a made-up reason that could have gotten me in a lot of trouble with the Navy. My wife was able to come with me to the meeting and had a brief conversation alone with the JAG. On the drive home, she told me what they spoke about, and basically the attorney just needed to confirm that everything the midwife said about me being abusive was false and unfounded. When my wife told her I had never and would never lay a hand on her or my child, she asked if my wife felt any sort of emotional distress about me not being there for the birth. She confirmed that she does, and that's when it was decided that we would try to build a case for more than just a plausible medical malpractice. We don't care about any monetary gain. If we were awarded anything, it will go into an educational account for our daughter or be donated to a charity. We are in agreement that the midwife should have to answer for what she did, though. She took away a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. Even if we have more children, I'll never get back the lost experience of not seeing my firstborn come into the world. So that's where things stand right now. Any further updates will most likely be a long way off, since there's going to be pending litigation soon. Thank you to almost everyone who commented and offered encouragement. It gave me the push I needed to seek out a legal remedy for the situation. My wife and I are truly thankful.
All right, so look, I'm not perfect, but I'm gonna be real with you. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. I'm not married. But if I was in OP's shoes, I want her ass fired, okay? I want her license revoked. Give me that, and I'm going to eat it. All right, that's me eating her license because F that woman. That's the kind of stuff that ruins people's lives. So, if you want to play that game, I'm going to play it right back. I'm going to just be honest with you. Oh, everyone in the military is evil and beats their wives. Okay, look, in my personal experience, of all the people in the military that I know, I've only known one guy who beat his wife. And he kind of ruined his life afterwards, and we're not friends anymore. But only one guy. The rest are pretty chill. And the rumor about getting, the muscle cars, that's true, though. But jokes aside, that story made me angry. And I feel so bad for OP because he missed a once-in-a-lifetime thing that she took away from him. And there was no reason to suspect or believe what she was saying. She just didn't like him and doesn't like military people. And also at the same time, as he mentioned, the wife was alone. Even the mothers couldn't get in there. That's horrible. She knows what she did. I challenge her to a boxing match. That's actually what I'm gonna do next. That's how we solve things in America. Next story.
Story number 8. Our rock-solid relationship imploded in a single night, and I'm completely blindsided. My partner 25M is my 26F rock, and I'm his. Literally, he tells me that all the time, including yesterday. We've been together for 5 years and have a truly wonderful relationship. Always talking, laughing, comfortable with one another, able to communicate healthy even when we disagree. After surviving abuse as a child and struggling with unhealthy romantic relationships in the past, the fact that we love each other in a respectful, secure, and profoundly healthy way is truly my biggest blessing, and I wake up every day so happy and grateful for him. He is an incredible man with so much drive, intelligence, kindness, and gifts to the world. About a year and a half ago, it came up for the first time that we saw ourselves getting married one day. It was such a beautiful moment, and it rocked my world to have been vulnerable, said those words, and have him say them too. Since then, it's been something incredibly happy that I got to hold in my heart and look forward to. The subject has come up sporadically since, but I haven't wanted to push it too far since we are young and it is very much an eventually thing. Now, both of our parents are divorced, and his come from money. He got a lot of strong advice growing up not to marry young and to protect his assets, to see it from a more financial view than I have ever thought of it. Nevertheless, the thought makes me happy, and we often daydream about the future we'll build together. The little house in New Hampshire we hope to buy, and the dogs and chickens we'll have. These are conversations he participates in and brings up on his own all the time. I want to be able to talk casually about the marriage aspect too. Go to bed with a sleepy, "can't wait to marry you" or "love of my life." But for some reason recently, whenever the subject has come up, he's clammed up and made it feel really serious. This culminated maybe 2 months ago with a really weird conversation in which I sensed he may not have processed what marriage really means in the way that I had, and that he wasn't ready to be talking about this in the way that I was, or as much as he had let on. I told him I don't want to put a gun to his head. This is just something that makes me happy to think about and talk about, and I tell him everything. I said I love him for him, and I'd wait as long as he needs. But that I firmly didn't want to bring up the subject again until he was comfortable discussing it. I wanted to relieve the pressure on him, and I haven't mentioned it since. Well, yesterday, we spent a really lovely day getting lunch and hiking with my family. They live far away, so we don't see them very often. My stepsister and her fiancé were there as well, and of course, there was a little bit of light conversation about their upcoming wedding. My boyfriend was his usual friendly, easygoing self, and I noticed he seemed quiet on the way home and later that evening, so I asked if he was worried about work, but he just said he was tired from having a long day traveling. I made him a drink, kissed him on the forehead like I always do, and promised we could do whatever he wanted to relax that night. Just did what I normally do when I can tell he's stressed. Try to show empathy and take care of him. But then, as I'm making dinner, he comes over to me and drops this bomb. He came over to me crying and said spending time with an engaged couple and even barely talking about their wedding had sent him into a panic, and he didn't know if he could ever see himself getting married. I was completely blindsided. I tried to parse what he was saying, but it was like my brain was stuck, and evidently he had been locking himself in his office at work all week crying about this, and I kept asking him why he said he would want to marry me if he didn't. He said he was lying, basically, that he wanted to give me what he knew I wanted to make me happy, and I could only just stare at him open-mouthed, and I kept trying to pinpoint if he was saying to me, "I don't think I'll be ready to get married for a long time," or "I don't think I'll ever be ready to get married," and I really don't think he knows himself. I don't think he's put any kind of mature thought into marriage at all. It was like talking to a scared child. He kept saying stuff about not knowing where his career will lead on or if he'll have enough money. He has a great job, by the way, an outstanding network, and is definitely not poor. Neither of us are. And I was just like, we're a partnership. You wanted to be with me yesterday. You want to be with me today. Do you want to be with me tomorrow? Yes, he said. And I said, well, that's all that matters. We have a life we love and we'll take on the future together when it comes. But I'm devastated. He left for his mother's house, and I don't know when he'll be home. I cannot take another sleeping pill, or my heart will stop, but I can't sleep a wink. I literally spiked a 100-degree fever and spent all night sweating and freezing. I had no idea it was possible to be in so much pain that it makes you physically sick. This person is the bedrock of my life. We have always had rock-solid confidence that we can trust each other, be vulnerable around each other, and be our full, authentic selves without inhibition or fear of judgment. We share everything together, and we are best friends. He even said that over and over as he sobbed and told me he loved me and that he didn't want to get married. Hours ago, I had the most beautiful and solid relationship in the world. Now, I don't know if we're going to break up. I'm reeling. I feel like I've been stabbed in the back by my safe space. The earth fell out from under me, and I don't even know what to think anymore. Update. I just want to say thank you to every person who commented. I was in an absolute state while writing my original post and truly thought only 8 people would see it. But I read every comment. The kind and empathetic advice I received gave me a little bit of hope and peace as I waited, and that was basically the only reason I was able to eat lunch those first 2 days. I wanted to thank all of you for that. But the long and short of it is, he left me. I called him the next day asking when he would come home, and he told me he needed a day to think, but he was talking like we were broken up, and I asked him to at least tell me if we're still together, and he wouldn't. So yeah, he just torched it in pretty much an instant. I had been leaning a lot on the kind words I received from folks who reassured me that one fight does not need to derail everything we've built over the last 5 years. I took the perspective that the question of marriage was something that we would need to discuss seriously, and hopefully through therapy to arrive at what both of us want. I had no idea he would just upend the table with no warning, without ever expressing his feelings or giving us the chance to address it with even a single conversation. So many of the comments I received revolved around the question, is not marrying him a deal breaker for you? Would you be okay with simply being a long-term relationship? I don't know. I would have to search my soul for that answer, but I didn't even get the chance. He made that choice for me. 5 beautiful years, and he just effing left. Needless to say, there were a million better ways to do this while honoring his fears and feelings while still showing me an ounce of respect as his partner and someone who loves him. This owed a conversation, and even if we still reached the same conclusion, I would understand. But this? It's not what I deserve. I did see him one night and we have been texting, and he said all of this awful stuff about how he was just trying to tell me everything I wanted to hear, how I wouldn't like the person he really is underneath all of his people-pleasing. He's got a lot of this don't talk about it, just run in his family, including his parents' relationships. My partner has always said he doesn't respect this kind of behavior and talked vehemently about his values being different. Then he just did the same thing. Although when I wrote in my original post that I wanted nothing more than to continue living our happy day-to-day together, but given this entire nightmare, space is the only thing that can do anything for either of us at this point. He has no idea what he's feeling or how to talk about it in a healthy way. My dad had the simplest take and yet said it best. He's immature. He needs to work on himself, and I hope he does. As for me, I'd be an idiot to still want to marry him, knowing this is the kind of thing that he's capable of. So we've got to break our lease. Apartment hunting, while still reeling from this 180 flip of my life, has been terrible. We moved to this city together, and pretty much every friend I have met through him. So I'm really scared it will mean losing a lot of other people I love too. It's going to be expensive and miserable to live on my own, and I'm still grieving my sweet love and the life I thought we were going to have together. I gave 5 years of my life and so much of myself to being one half of that partnership. I never wanted to be on my own again, and now I am. I still love him, but I can't wait around while he fixes himself, or pine foolishly hoping one day he'll wake up and be ready for me. I don't want to stand on my own 2 feet, but that's just what I have to do.
Well, a bit of overlap on this story and the previous story, or the one before that. Sorry, that was about the midwife. I hate her. But not much to say here other than I just feel for OP. How can you not? For her, 5 years of a romantic partnership down the drain with someone who may have been lying partially the whole time about what he wanted and what he wanted in the future and who he really is. Like he said, you wouldn't like the real me under the people-pleasing. And like Daddy said, I don't know why I said Daddy, but like the dad said, he's immature. That's it. He didn't even want to talk about it. Like we've had a lot of stories here with like horrible, abusive partners. And at least they'll have a conversation or they'll like meet up at the cafe or something. Like he didn't even give his evil villain monologue. That's the worst kind of villain. How do we know what you stand for? He's a premature bad guy. All right. He's not ready for the Marvel movie. This guy is not an Avengers level threat. All right. He's out of Opie's life and, she's got to start over. Not completely, but, she's got a new chapter, I guess, and it's going to be tough, but best of luck to her. Anyway, next story. Story number 9. Am I the a-hole for charging my friend for an initially free wedding cake after she told me it doesn't count as a wedding gift? I, 34F, have a friend who I will call Mary, 33F, who is getting married in 2 weeks. She and I have been friends for several years, and I was excited when she asked me if I could make her cake. I don't normally do cakes anymore for people outside of family and friends as I'm currently pregnant, have a 1-year-old, and I am currently pursuing another master's degree in education administration so I can be a school principal, because teaching is dead end without an admin license, unfortunately. At the time when she asked, I was also teaching full-time and finishing up a different master's program. Anyway, I agreed to make this cake over a year ago, and I told Mary when she offered to pay that I would do it for free as my wedding gift to her, and I distinctly said wedding gift.
She accepted, and we started planning the design. Mary wanted a 4-tier cake with each tier a different flavor: white, chocolate, yellow, lemon, and several sugar flowers and fondant decorations, as well as 3 different flavored buttercreams. It was a lot, but since she is having an August wedding, I had time because school would be out for summer, and I am actually taking a year off since finding out I was pregnant a few months ago. Saturday, I went to Mary's bachelorette party. The party itself was fine. Nothing remarkable happened. I couldn't drink, but everyone had fun. One of Mary's bridesmaids asked what we were all getting for her wedding, and I said I was making the cake for free. The bridesmaid and the other girls said that was a good gift because cake is expensive, and they wished they had gotten one for free. That's it, and I heard nothing else about it until today. Mary texted me and asked me why I wasn't getting her a wedding gift. I told her I was and that it was the cake, and reminded her that the cake was free. She said that wasn't a gift, that it's a favor. I told her it is a gift, and that she can't tell me what I can gift her. I then asked her why she was mentioning it, and she said the bridesmaid I spoke to Saturday told her that she was so lucky to get a free cake. She agreed, but then was upset when the bridesmaid said that's a good gift. I asked her if her own bridesmaid thinks it's a good gift, what's the problem? And she said it's not up to the bridesmaid to tell her what her gifts are. I told her this is her gift. She said that a gift, though, needs to be something that she can use in her marriage, not just the cake at the wedding. I told her with me going to school and not working right now that this is a major expense that I'm taking on by doing it for free. And she said that wasn't her problem and that a real friend would do both. I responded, fine, I'll get back to you. And she thanked me for understanding. About 30 minutes later, I sent her a bill for her cake. The bill was for $700 with a deposit of $350 due by this Friday, and the rest 24 hours before the event start time. She asked me what that was for, and I told her since it's not a gift, she needs to pay for it. And she said she couldn't afford it, and I told her I didn't care and that this is what business looks like. I did promise to get her a gift off her registry, though. She told me no cake is worth $700, but in the bill breakdown, I pointed out where it was going from ingredients to transportation. Her venue is 45 minutes away. Additional labor, my husband helps me deliver cakes, so he's getting paid too, and last-minute booking, time, and the size of the cake on top of the intricate decorations that she wants. She said she couldn't be charged for anything since I promised to do it for free, and it's too late to find another baker. I said, that sounds an awful lot like not my problem, because it isn't. She then asked if I could just do the cake for free and forget the gift. But I said, no, this is the new deal, and I have not responded to her texts since. She and her fiancé were venting in a group message with the wedding party that I'm not in. One of the bridesmaids, who is a mutual friend, asked me what happened after telling me what was being said in the group text, and I sent her the messages of our exchange, and now apparently, the bridal party is now divided. Some people are saying I should go back and do the cake for free like I originally promised, while others are telling Mary she was wrong, and apparently it's become a huge ordeal. Her fiancé is now mad at both of us for being petty and ridiculous. My husband is team Mary can go suck an egg and doesn't think I should do the cake or get the gift. But he told me to remember that this could cost me a friendship, but he'd support me either way, but he thinks I should stand my ground in this and not let Mary push me around. However, my husband also doesn't really like Mary for unrelated reasons, so he may be biased. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for charging my friend for the cake and refusing to do it for free after she got mad at me? Update. I read as many comments as I could. To be honest, I did not expect the amount of responses I got, and responded to who I could. This post was originally going to be answering as many repeat questions as I could, but this morning, mutual friend bridesmaid, I will call her Pam, messaged me today to give me an update. Mary and her fiancé, who I will call Frank, are currently not on speaking terms because they got into an argument last night. It wasn't directly because of the cake, but what the cake debacle revealed to Frank. Apparently, Mary has been spending a lot of his money on this wedding. Now, we all kind of already knew that, and Mary told us Frank and his family would be footing the bill. He's an engineer and his family has a lot of money. I'm not exactly sure what their family wealth is from, but it was enough to pay out of pocket for him and his siblings to go to expensive universities debt-free. What we didn't know is that they've been arguing about the finances the entire time, and my cake was the last straw for Frank. Mary's budget for their wedding was $30,000, and she's apparently spent almost double that on intricate flowers, her wedding dress, decorations, engagement photos, catering, open bar, entertainment, and flying her family in and paying for their accommodations. The venue alone took a good chunk of their money because of the size and location, an hour away from where we all live, and it's a large house, maybe considered a mansion, I can't remember, with several acres of land, horses, a lake, and a field for wedding photos. The entire wedding party is supposedly staying there for a few days leading up to the wedding. I've not seen it in person. Again, I'm not in the wedding party and never was, but the photos online make it obvious why it's so expensive. I had no idea they had spent that much, and neither did anyone in the wedding party. As far as we all knew, the most expensive thing Mary had bought was her wedding dress to the tune of $5,000. I only know this because I went with her to try some on with other friends and bridesmaids. Pam's fiance is one of Frank's groomsmen, and Frank's been venting to the groomsmen in the texts about how much this is costing, and he's not sure he wants to do this anymore. However, he feels compelled to because the money has been spent and is non-refundable. But he said he didn't know Mary would be this way about a wedding because she typically sticks to budgets, which is true. Literally, everyone is surprised by how much she is supposedly spending, including my husband and me. Mary is the person who gets everything off-brand at the store to save $1, even when she really doesn't need to. From what Pam told me, Mary asked him to just pay me so she could have the cake, and he said no, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he was tired of spending money on just one day. He told her to figure it out herself. So nobody knows what is going on anymore, or if there will even be a wedding. No one has reached out to me about making the cake either, or my husband. And for those wondering, he is still on team Mary can suck an egg. And before anyone asks, no, Mary did not grow up poor. She was very much middle class like I was, and she's never been broke or anything. She's also never seemed like she wanted overly expensive stuff. She drives a 10-year-old sedan that, despite Frank saying she needs a new car, she won't get rid of because it runs fine and my dad taught me to drive my cars into the ground. So believe me when I say it is really out of character for her to be this nonchalant about money. I'm not sure if I'll have another update, but if I do, it'll be after the wedding, if there is one. Edit. I know a lot of people are saying things about Mary just using Frank for his money, but at the same time, I want to remember that Pam only gave me Frank's side via what he's been telling the groomsmen. I have no idea what part he played, and if this is really actually bothering him up to this point, or if he's ever mentioned the amount she's been spending to her. It's now 6 p.m., and I've not spoken to or heard from Mary since yesterday, after giving her the quote, so I don't have any more to add other than my perspective. It really does sound out of character for Mary to be doing this. But I remember when I got married that my husband said he wanted me to have what made me happy for our wedding. So if he's been telling her what my husband told me and still giving her money, then he's definitely not an innocent party in my opinion. Final update. So, as I mentioned before, Mary was and still is a frugal person. That's why we all thought the gift and cake thing was weird, as well as her spending a bunch of money for the wedding. It turns out that Mary has actually been trying to save money despite doubling their budget. Apparently, Frank's family always throws extravagant celebrations and parties. That includes birthdays, holidays, graduations, and weddings. So Frank has been emphasizing to Mary that this wedding is supposed to be huge because that's how his family is. I'm guessing it's a way to flaunt success, but that's just a guess. I don't actually know the real reason. But Frank has been hands-off the entire time. I'm not surprised. My own husband only cared about the food, cake flavor, and that the colors weren't pink. But Frank has been telling Mary to save money since that's what she's good at, and that he didn't want to spend a bunch of money on only one day. So Mary picked out things that were cheaper but were not good enough for Frank. Like that mansion/large house where everyone would be staying? Yeah, Frank's idea. Mary apparently wanted to do a hotel that hosted weddings because her family could stay there for less money, and the hotel was just cheaper to host a wedding versus a literal mansion with horses. He would do this with everything, and veto things like her choices of decorations and vendors because they weren't big enough, or I'm guessing extravagant. He even told her how big her bouquet had to be, and that her dress needed to have lots of bling. So basically, Mary has been trying to stick to the budget, but what was in the budget didn't match Frank's taste or expectations. So, when I said she had to pay for the cake, Frank accused Mary of not saving them money, despite her being so money conscious. And Mary wasn't the one who had the problem with the cake, it was Frank. I guess they both knew the cake was free, but Frank didn't know I was making it as a gift. Mary explained that I was, and he said that didn't count, and to ask me about it. He said it didn't count because friends doing favors for an event like a wedding isn't a gift. On some level, she must have agreed because she didn't mention Frank being the one with the problem at all in the messages, but whatever. Anyway, the cake was what Mary was really looking forward to because it was the only thing she felt she had 100% say in regarding the wedding. And then, when I charged her for it, Frank was upset that Mary was not saving them money like he was expecting. This resulted in a fight where they ended up not on speaking terms. When Frank was complaining to Pam's fiancé and the rest of the groomsmen, it was in text. And according to Pam, Mary found them and left Frank for making her seem like a greedy female dog to everyone, when she was only getting things Frank wanted without Frank's help. And that if it were up to her, they wouldn't have most of the expensive things she bought for the wedding. The only contact I've had from Mary was an apology text message when I told her it was okay and we were still friends. She didn't answer. In fact, she hasn't answered anyone other than to tell the wedding party that the wedding was off and apologize for the inconvenience, and since then, she's been quiet. She did post on her social media a long apology for canceling. She said postponed, but I noticed her relationship status is gone. But the location/check-ins is in the hometown where her parents live, not where we live. So I think she went back to her parents' house after calling off the wedding. But that's all I know, and I heard it secondhand from Pam. But according to Pam, Frank is upset Mary left because all his money is tied up in vendors that he can't get back and has been trying to plead his case with the groomsmen. But only his brother is on his side. Pam's fiancé and the other groomsmen have stopped talking to him. Also, there was questions as to why Mary wasn't paying for the wedding too. I can't answer that, but Mary works as an STNA and doesn't make a lot. Her bachelor's was in psychology, and she never went on to get her doctorates, so getting employed in her field isn't very easy. I also don't know if they're still together. Mary didn't say they broke up, just that the wedding is postponed/canceled. I apologize if this confused anyone, but I'll try to answer anything I can in the comments. Just remember, I heard most of this secondhand besides the apology I got from Mary and the post she made online, so I may not have all the answers. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "I don't understand the connection between Mary wanting a gift and a free cake to Frank's villainous. Like, isn't Mary still wrong for asking for a gift?" Yeah, she is, but she apologized and I accepted it. The only part I'm not clear on is how it even came up as a conversation between her and Frank. It might have just been casual, but maybe she has also been talking on speakerphone when it happened. I do that with my husband in the room, so he hears my conversations sometimes, even if he's not a part of it. But it sounds like Frank was mad that they were now paying for the cake when he thought it would be free, and the goal was to spend little money for nice stuff. I'm guessing that if I agreed to do the cake and give them a bill from the beginning, instead of volunteering to do it for free, I would be dealing with the "that's too expensive for us" cake, or "we're friends, I should get a discount." Like there would have been negotiating from the start regardless. And I've had people pull those lines on me before. That's another reason why I rarely do cakes for people, even if they offer to pay, because they still want some type of discount and get mad when I don't give one. And finally, user 2 commented and said, "Arguably the best part about this is that she apologized to you, but it also answers some questions that your other posts left open. But the one you didn't answer, is your husband still team Mary can suck an egg?" No. My husband, despite not liking Mary, thought this was strange behavior from her too. So when he found out that Frank's been lying, or at least not wholly honest about everything, he's team Frank can kick rocks with no shoes on. My husband likes idioms.
And you know what, hubby? I like idiots too. They're my favorite type of people. I don't care what anyone says. But about the story, my personal theory during the halfway point was that Mary was going to be like, "I've been frugal my whole life. I deserve to go all out just this once." But turns out that wasn't the case. It was secretly Frank taking off his mask saying, "It was me, Austin. It was me all along." Someone will get that reference. But Frank's logic here is a little confusing, but also rich people just operate in a way that we normal folks just cannot understand. You look at him and you're like, "What are you doing? Why do you wipe your ass with $100 bills? I put those in my pocket. You put them where the sun doesn't shine. I guess we're just different." Like, he wanted extravagant things, but also didn't want to spend a lot of money. So I'm like, I don't know what the plan was here. I think Frank's just an idiot. And then the budget got blown. So, you know, I don't know. He's $60,000 out. Good luck, bro. But that ain't me. Anyway, next story.
Story number 10. A week ago, my brother was in his 30s and healthy. Today, he's in the ICU with locked-in syndrome. The stroke doctor is concerned it may be locked-in syndrome anyway. The original neurologist and attending physician basically made us believe that there was no hope he was in there at all anymore. Yesterday, the stroke team came in and assessed him, and that's where the new diagnosis or theory came from. I don't know if I believe it or not. Is it good he's still in there, or is it cruel to even want that? We don't know if he'll even get better. Very few people recover from locked-in syndrome, and he has an ongoing infection and inflammation in the brainstem. We don't want him to live in storage in a care home for 30 years, vented, unable to move or communicate, just existing instead of living. But how do you pull life support from someone who may be conscious, and can you even do so legally? Or he may get a blood clot from being bedbound, or pneumonia, or the COVID the family just tested positive for. He had no health problems at all a week ago. The last few years, he has been the happiest of his life. It just doesn't feel real. Then in the comments section, one user said,
"Hey OP, I have worked with many locked-in patients. It is a fate I would never wish on anyone.
Diagnosis is hard because it's effectively a diagnosis of exclusion. If it's true, textbooked locked in, the clearest supporting presentation is if the patient can consistently move their eyes up and down, not side to side on command. The difficulty lies in that real people aren't textbooks. Plus, there are so many co-founding factors that it can make it hard to say with certainty if a patient is truly locked in. All that being said, I've had multiple locked-in patients recover to near normal levels of function. I was shocked because previously, locked in was a death sentence. Assuming he is young and healthy and his stroke is highly localized to the area that results in locked-in, he may actually make some meaningful recovery with intensive therapy from locked-in accredited facilities. There are a few highly regarded facilities in the US, and it is a long and arduous process. I'm talking a year minimum, but recovery is possible under the right circumstances. Also, ongoing infection is going to make it really difficult to determine exactly what's going on. You really need to be able to normalize everything else before you can say with certainty if someone is locked in.
Then user 2 commented and said, "My aunt got pneumonia like 10 years ago and ended up in a coma. It was so severe. My mom went to the hospital and would just sit and talk to her, read her favorite books, put on her favorite shows, etc. Even though the doctor said she wouldn't be able to recognize anything. She later woke up and told my mom that she heard everything my mom did, and what my mom did gave her hope to keep going. So have hope, OP. There's always hope."
Thank you. I asked his friends if he'd been intending to read any books, and I ran out to pick one up yesterday so I can read it out loud to him. Unfortunately, it's the Andromeda strain, and I didn't realize the subject matter until buying it.
Then user 3 commented and said, "You should read it, and once it gets to the climax, just stop. Then be like, 'Hey, mother effer, you can finish this once you're out of the coma. I'm leaving it right here for you,' and then put it by his bed. But also, I have a sick sense of humor sometimes. But seriously, don't give up hope on him. Hope can do crazy things, and people have gone through crazy ordeals only relying on hope. Be his hope if he needs it."
New post. What should I get for my brother's ICU nurses who are working over Christmas? So, my brother's been in the ICU for a few weeks, and I appreciate all of the nurses so much, but I wanted to at least get a little something for them, who are missing out on time with their families, to care for mine. Me and the immediate family have COVID and aren't even able to go in person. So, food delivery, sweets, chocolates, gift cards, Amazon, Starbucks. I want it to be something actually desirable/useful. Thank you.
Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "My favorite gift as a nurse that a family brought in was a ton of practical stuff from Costco, with enough to go around. Think lip balm, gum packs, protein bars, Fairlife protein drinks, then maybe a few goodies like chocolate or candy. Also, I'm sorry your brother is in the ICU. I hope he makes a good recovery, and I'm glad it's been a good experience with the staff." Then user 2 commented and said, "Just speaking from a personal perspective, but a sincere thank you card is awesome. We post ones we get in our break room, and so when we go to eat a quick snack, it's like a nice little words of affirmation boost reading them." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "If food, be sure to schedule 2 separate deliveries. One for day shift, typically 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and one for night shift, typically 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. If you just deliver it once during the day, it will be gone/cold for night shift."
Update. Thank you you everyone for your kind words on my last post. This has been harder than there is language to explain, so I won't try. We have a tentative diagnosis for the cause of the encephalitis now, after getting a test back from the Mayo Clinic. Disseminated histoplasmosis with CNS involvement, a brain fungal infection basically. Extremely rare for someone immunocompetent, very difficult to diagnose and often misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed. Viral meningitis is the usual misdiagnosis, which is exactly what they had been assuming. His presentation matches it perfectly, including the upper respiratory thing he was dealing with for weeks prior. He was started on IV antifungals the very day they got the test back. In the past few weeks, we've lost the suspicion that he was locked in. He was in a full coma until 2 days ago, when he spontaneously opened his eyes. One neurologist, a stroke specialist, said this was an encouraging sign, and the other general neurologist said it was nothing, so as usual, we have no idea what's going on, what to expect, or what to hope for. Perhaps being foolishly hopeful, it does seem meaningful that there was never any improvement until a few days ago into the antifungal course. He's been treated for everything, and I mean everything else. I didn't know so many antibiotics existed. He's going to be transferred to a major research hospital in Manhattan as soon as an ICU bed becomes available. We're just waiting for the call, and when it comes, they'll stuff him in the helicopter day or night. Because he's had strokes, it's possible that nothing can ever be done, and that there will be no improvement from here. But I will wait for the big brains in New York City to tell us that. Also, he was Joel from The Last of Us for Halloween. He's a method-acting a-hole, and I have the watch he made for it, and if he ever recovers enough for me to do so, I'm gonna throw it at his head. Then in the comments section, one user said,
I had disseminated histoplasmosis, which took 5 months and multiple hospitalizations until my organic began failing. I transferred to another hospital's ICU and was intubated for 10 days till they found what seemed to be yeast in my system, which indicated something fungal related. They hit me with anamorphosine B and my fever came down, and ultimately they pulled me out of the ventilator. I don't know if there's much more I can say to comfort you, but I know there's zero community here of those who have... They hit me with anamorphosine B and my fever came down, and ultimately they pulled me out of the ventilator. I don't know if there's much I can say to comfort you, but I know there's zero community here of those who have faced disseminated histoplasmosis. So if you have any questions, thoughts, etc., DM me. I am here for you.
And then user 2 commented and said,
as a sibling who watched my sister battle an ultra-rare, no chance this could be it, blood disease from an ICU bed, I'm holding y'all in my heart. Thank you for taking the time to update a bunch of strangers on the internet.
Then Opie asked a question in the comments section and said, I saw a discussion here recently about how going to the nurse's station is frustrating and needy. I had no idea this was the case and had considered it less obnoxious than hitting the call button. For me, using a button or bell to summon someone always gives me the ick and felt inappropriate for non-emergencies. So in a vein similar to that, what should we the family do to make your lives easier? What do you wish more families would do? And similar to the above, what do you wish families would stop doing? Then user 3 commented and said,
don't ask for stuff yourselves. I'm here to help your family member, not get you a blanket, coffee, water, a new pillow, a different chair, etc. Also, feel free to help your family member adjust their blanket, change the channel, adjust the heat/AC, charge their phone, etc. You don't have to call me for that.
Then user 4 said,
clustering cares is super helpful. Hitting the call light is great, and when you do, it's nice to think of other things you might need. For example, hey, I think my dad needs help to use the bathroom. And also, since it's 11, could we order lunch and change his sheets while he's up? And while you're in here, could you tell us when his next pain meds are due? It's not always going to be possible. Humans are not robots. People can be frequently incontinent, need pain meds, etc. But it's so nice to be able to knock out several tasks at once instead of coming in and out multiple times in an hour. To be clear, please use your call light when you need it. Don't wait if your loved one is sitting in a mess or wailing in pain just because you don't want to inconvenience us.
And finally, user 5 said,
try to appoint one person to get updates from the doctors and nurses that can update the rest of your family. When grandma has 5 daughters visiting and calling for updates, it can be overwhelming. Don't come up to the nurse's station instead of using the call light, then stand there and wait. Don't order DoorDash and expect staff to run around looking for it or bring it to the room right when it arrives.
Update. I wanted to give an update to my 2 posts from earlier this year. I know a few folks reached out to me, and I'm sorry for not responding, as I wasn't in a place at the time to really do so. But your kindness and the fact that total strangers on the internet genuinely cared was a balm for me when I really needed it. So, the final diagnosis is an extremely rare autoimmune disorder called acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. The trigger isn't clear, but it can really be caused by almost anything. He had an upper respiratory infection prior to all of this, which is a common trigger. He slowly emerged from his coma over the course of a month or two, passing through different levels of consciousness and awareness slowly, and was in fact locked in the early stages. He could only move his eyes to communicate, and he received plasmapheresis treatments and started regaining mobility after that. It started with slightly moving his head side to side, slightly moving his hips, slightly twitching his fingers. Soon, he was mouthing words and curling his toes. Adem apparently has a good prognosis for recovery, and the larger hospital we transferred to told us that there are no strokes in the brain, despite the initial hospital's assessment. The larger hospital has significantly more advanced MRI machines, which meant they could capture pictures the smaller regional hospital couldn't. This is something I wanted to bring up because I want to emphasize the importance of seeking the second opinion. Had we not transferred to the larger hospital, got the plasma treatment, got the new MRIs, we may very well have made a very different decision regarding life support. I have no doubt other families in our position through the years have been forced to do just that. Do not give up until you have a diagnosis. As for how things are going now, he's been slowly regaining his mobility, and the neurologists told us we have no reason to believe he won't walk again. Cognitively, he is 100%. He doesn't remember the first weeks or so after waking up from the coma, but does remember everything before getting sick perfectly. He weaned off the ventilator in March, and he transferred to an inpatient rehab facility, and was there for several more months. He's now home and doing outpatient rehabilitation. He can move every body part, though he has muscle wasting and will need to continue intense physical therapy to get out of the wheelchair. Being in hospitals for nearly a year is not without its own complications. Sepsis at least once, pneumonia multiple times, so much MRSA and IV antibiotics, and stage 4 bed sore. But considering where this started, it still feels like a miracle. 5 hospitals, 8 months. Please hold your family members close and don't take for granted the amazing things your body does every day. It can all go haywire overnight. And to anyone who read these posts and cared for some strangers on the internet, thank you.
So, first off, before I say anything else, y'all, I tried with the medical terms, okay? Those terms are just not made for people to pronounce, okay? I don't know why they're not simpler. But as for the story, I had to stop reading early on and take a break because I was like, this is hard to read because, like that one commenter said, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemies, to just be the locked-in aspect, because that's horrifying and frightening to think about. And also the position that the families are in and the doctors. Are they in there? Are they not? Do we, pull the plug? Do we not? It's a tough thing, but like Opie said, stick with it. Get that second opinion. I think second opinions are super important, and especially because she didn't just go to any facility. She went to a specialized facility, and they took her brother there. So, happy ending, but, just, God, that was tough to read at some points. But you know what? He's better now, and that's what I will focus on. That's what I will end on. Next story.
Story number 11. I'm babysitting my sister, and she thinks she needs to go to the ER for her period, and I don't know. Okay, so I, 19M, am babysitting my little sister, 15F, while our parents are on a trip internationally. It's like a completely different time zone, and the signal sucks. They get home in like 6 days. But we are both pretty self-sufficient and felt like it would be fine, and my parents left us food and money and stuff. We've been Gucci for a whole week so far. Anyway, this morning she got her period while she was just playing video games with me, and she got blood all over the couch. So I paused the game while she took care of it and put on a Tampad, and I didn't make a big deal of it. I was trying to be nice because I know it can make girls cranky and it hurts and stuff, so I got snacks and a blanket and whatever, and we kept playing. Well, maybe like 40 minutes later, she freaked out because she bled on the couch again. And I'm like, did you put the whole thing on wrong or what? So she changed again, and I even helped her clean the blood off the couch this time, and I figured she'd use a bigger feminine thing. No big deal. Well, like 30 minutes after we start playing again, she pauses and goes to the bathroom, and I hear her scream. So I run over there thinking there's a spider or something, but she came out holding like this chunk. It was like a chunk of blood. But looking at it, I'm like, crap, maybe that's an organ? Like, is that your kidney? But she was like, no, it's a clot. And she was freaking out about it, which, yeah, it was gross. It was like the size of a hacky sack. So I'm like, okay, we'll go flush your clot. Anyway, she cleans herself up, but then she said she doesn't want to play anymore. And I'm like, okay. So she spent an hour on the couch with her face all scrunched up doing yoga breathing and telling me her cramps were the worst ever. So I gave her Tylenol, but she wouldn't take it because she said she feels like she's gonna throw up. I brought her water and juice and warmed up that gel thing that you stick on your stomach, you know? So I was trying to help. Well, then she says, oh no. And she gets up and goes to the bathroom. And as she's walking, she's got like blood going down her leg. She yelled for me from the bathroom and I go in there and she's sitting there and I hear this plopping sound and there's more of those chunks, like maybe 2 of them, and she says, I think we need to go to the ER. And I'm like, why? And she tells me this is more blood than she's ever had and she doesn't feel good. But periods are supposed to suck, right? And she wouldn't take the Tylenol either, so she didn't really try to manage it at home. So then she started yelling at me, telling me I have to take her because she can't drive, but I'm pretty sure our parents will kill me if I take her to the ER for her period? Is that a thing? She's sitting in the shower now because she said she thought the warm water would feel good, and she was sick of bleeding on stuff, and it's more comfortable than the toilet. I asked her if she just needs a bigger tampad, and she told me to STFU, so she's not even communicating with me at this point. And I've asked her a few times if she's okay in there, and she tells me, I'm bleeding out, Mason, what do you think? So, like, she's not unconscious? I don't know. I don't know anything about this, but I also know she hates blood and flips out about any minor cut too. Is going to the ER because of a period a thing? Can you bleed too much? I thought there was only a certain amount of blood in the vagina every month. I feel like she'd be more comfortable at home anyway if she'd just take the Tylenol. I don't know what to do. My sister is like average teenage girl height, pretty skinny because she's a ballerina and doesn't eat meat. She takes Accutane for her pimples. I'm not sure if there's any other stuff that's important. She's had her period for like a year now, I'm pretty sure, maybe more. She takes Flintstone gummy vitamins sometimes, like the ones in the purple jar, and she's obsessed with Celsius energy drinks. She wears contacts, and she had her wisdom teeth removed 2 months ago. I don't know, I want her to be okay and stuff, but I'm not sure the ER is a good choice. Help? Then in the comments section, one user said,
Is there any chance of pregnancy or a miscarriage?
I mean, I don't think so. She doesn't have a boyfriend, and when I asked, she told me to F off, so probably not. Then user 2 said,
Tampons or pads?
I asked, and she said she was using a tampon first, but after that, she used both to prevent leaks. So both, I guess? She said always with Wings and Tampax Sport. And finally, user 3 said,
OP, I'm a doctor. If she's saturating more than 1 tampon in an hour, she should be seen.
She said she was soaking both of them, so I guess we are going. Update, 30 minutes later. Okay, she's throwing some extra clothes and crap in a bag, and I'm trying to think what my mom would do, so I brought water bottles, sunscreen, and snacks, and something to do. Then user 4 said,
Well, you don't need sunscreen at the hospital. Extra clothes, maybe a water bottle, snacks are good, insurance card, and call your parents. Didn't they leave another adult's number for you to call in an emergency? Do you have another relative?
Oh, crap, yeah, I gotta tell my parents. I mean, no, they didn't, but I think it's because I'm the adult? Then OP elaborated if there are any other adults and said, all our relatives live on the other side of the country, but like she has friends and they have moms, but she wasn't into the idea of asking them. Then user 5 said,
Let this be a lesson to you. If a woman says, this is wrong, this doesn't seem normal, about her own body, try listening to her and not making her jump through hoops convincing you something is wrong while you ask the internet for advice. Just listen to her.
Yeah, I was being a jerk. Then OP elaborated on the sunscreen and said, yeah, I didn't think about the fact that it's inside. Just like my mom is always yelling about sunscreen, so that's why. Then OP is encouraged to bring a comfort item for his sister, to which he said, okay, this makes me feel good because I packed her Squishmallow, and I was kind of afraid to tell her I did that in case she thought it was embarrassing or something. I sent my mom a text too, by the way. Then one user told OP to bring a bowl in case she vomits and said, nah, for real? I wish I would have read this because she threw up in the car twice. She told me to stop driving like Stevie Wonder, and I swear I was laughing so hard I almost had to pull over.
Then user 6 said, "It sounds like she is really comfortable with you. I mean, she let you help her clean up and showed you clots, and you didn't get all, ew, I'm a guy, don't show me about it. Frankly, you are acting better than my husband would when it comes to helping. He'd never look at my blood or think to bring snacks. So you are doing pretty good, and she might not feel that she needs another female."
I mean, if I acted grossed out, she'd tell me to grow the F up, and my sister doesn't deal with stupid dudes. But yeah, we're close and it's just blood, so. Mini update. Okay, we got here. She threw up a couple of times in the car, but she said she's good now. We walked in and she was like dripping down her leg again, and they saw that at the desk and maybe how effing freaked out I looked and took her back pretty much right away.
Then one user commented and said, "Adding to this, because questions about her sexual history and habits are definitely going to be asked, big bro, make it clear to her that if she wants you to leave, you will. If she wants you to stay, I would make it clear to her that you're not going to snitch on her about anything she says. If it's something that needs to be brought up to your parents, the doctors can do that. It's not your job to tell your parents her answers. If you can't make her that promise, tell her you can't be in the room."
Nah, I'm not saying crap if I find anything out. She caught me smoking weed on the roof 2 years ago and she still hasn't ratted. Small update number 2. Okay, so she's getting Zofran and fluids and they're gonna do an ultrasound in the room here. So far, we know she's not pregnant, and her labs, some of them weren't great. Hemoglobin was 6.8. That's not good. Normal for women is 12 to 16, and that's basically the one I remember. She said to tell everyone thank you for the advice and stuff, and she also said that she feels okay, just really tired.
Then one user in the comment section said, "The tube sounds like a catheter. They may want a clean urine sample, and the excessive bleeding can contaminate a urine sample and affect certain test results."
Oh, yeah, okay. They said they wanted a urine sample, but I was thinking, why can't she just pee in a cup? Small update number 3. Alright, the ultrasound was normal. She's being admitted. They want to test her for bleeding and clotting disorders now, and they're going to give her some blood. They asked if I know my blood type, which I don't. I'm not sure why that matters, and my sister is B+ though.
Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "OP, you mentioned the term tampad. It's a good way of saying tampon or pad." Then user 2 replied and said, "I agree. This is a useful neologism, OP. Thanks." Then OP replied and said,
See, I'm not an idiot, I'm just inventing new terms.
Then user 3 said, "You have probably unmouthed your foot, so don't be afraid to ask questions now. It's much better to ask questions so you don't have to worry or freak out about things you don't know or don't understand, than to drive yourself mad with worry about something that might not warrant that worry or leaves you with unanswered questions. Best of luck to you and your sister. And was she happy you packed her Squishmallow?"
Yeah, she's sleeping on the Squishmallow like a pillow, RN, and told me it's the only reason she forgives me. That's a good idea though. When she wakes up, I'll ask her.
Then user 4 said, "If she gets admitted, you may want to consider making a trip home to pick up any comfort items either of you two need, like a book, laptop, or blanket, but only if your sister feels comfortable with that."
So she packed clothes and I packed her Squishmallow and our Switches so we would have stuff to do. But she didn't even want me to get up to go pee, so I don't think she wants me to leave. She's asleep now though.
Then user 5 said, "Definitely not the worst way to have to spend time in a hospital. Hope she turns out okay. Though I'm extremely curious about what the root cause is, and if you both feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to know."
Yeah, she said she doesn't care as long as I don't post any pictures of her because she said she looks like 2024 Amanda Bynes and Britney Spears combined.
And finally, user 6 said, "For future reference, you can call your doctor's office or an advice nurse with stuff like this. They will ask you a bunch of questions about what's going on and tell you what to do."
Yeah, I was Googling, do you go to the ER for a bad period? And that's how I found this subreddit. But if something ever happens again, that's probably a better bet. Small update number 4. We both slept, got a hold of our parents, and my mom is looking for flights back home. Sister is feeling a lot better at this point. They gave her medicine to stop the bleeding, and I wasn't expecting this to blow up the way it did, so there's no way I'll be able to answer everyone. She's doing okay though, and should know more about the CT soon.
Then in the comments section, one user said, "Mate, I grew up with a crappy big brother, and even now as adults, I know he couldn't do half the job you've done taking care of your little sister. You've restored my faith in humanity and big brothers, and I'm glad to see the night was uneventful and that you got hold of your parents. And whatever you do, don't forget to reapply your sunscreen often."
Oh man, she changed my name in her phone to SPF, so I'm never living this crap down. Small update number 5. Alright, her vitals are now 101/65 and 80, so she's doing better. Small update number 6. The CT was good too. They're pretty sure she had a blood disorder, and they're just waiting on the results of it. I guess when she had her wisdom teeth out, she bled more than she was supposed to, but I didn't know that before. So yeah, just waiting on that for now, but they don't think the issue is her uterus or whatever. Then one user in the comment section said,
Just wanted to also mention that I think your post has become the #1 post on this subreddit ever.
Oh boy, I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm glad this is anonymous. Small update. 8 hours later, 27 hours after original post. Alright, I'm gonna try here instead of a post and hopefully be more covert about it, but could someone that knows about it tell me about the type 2 von Willebrads? Like, the blood disorder? Because the internet says everything from like, it's mild to it's life-threatening, and I guess I just want to know more about it and like how it affects the day-to-day life and stuff. I also appreciate the help with my sister before too. It's cool that you guys just do this. Update number 1. Alright, so I guess I was posting the updates in the comments, but it's better here. Anyway, so my sister is okay. She had some scans that were all fine, and they don't think she has fibroids or tumors or anything like that. She's feeling a little better, but still staying here at least another day. Our mom and dad are flying home tomorrow now, and my mom was pissed I texted her instead of calling at first. Already had someone try to find me on Instagram, so like if you know me or her, no you don't. She doesn't want this going around school or whatever, so please don't dox us for at least 3 years. She's cool with me updating though without her name or whatever. Also, our parents don't know about this either. I don't know, I feel like we should wait until it's been a few years to tell them too so that they don't kill me. She's gonna hold this crap over my head forever. Anyway, they think she has a blood disorder that makes her not clot right. I'm not 100% sure how it works because she had big clots, but they said they're pretty sure that's what's going on because her PTT took longer than normal to clot. They're waiting on von Willebrand testing to come back, but they think she has type 2 probably. Gonna Google that tonight because I don't know what it is and I've never heard of it, so I guess if any of the doctors know what that is, or if this sounds like it, let me know. And yeah, wasn't expecting this to blow up like this though. I thought this was just like doctors answering questions like a helpline, but my sister said thank you for everyone telling me to take her and she's okay. Update number 2. They confirmed it's von Willebrand's. I don't know if I'll ever spell that right. Anyway, it's genetic, I guess, so they want me to get tested too, but like obviously I've never had periods and I've never had surgery, so it wouldn't be as obvious. There's still more testing, I guess, like more specific to the type, but anyways, sister is good and we have an answer. She's gonna talk to a hematologist next week about what that means and stuff. Update number 3. So, I guess I have von Willebrand's. So does our mom. I've always bruised a lot and got super bad nosebleeds, but like I also was kind of a dumb idiot teen and kid who thought life was an audition for Jackass, so I didn't think it was weird. Anyway, we're all about to be real familiar with hematology, and my mom is pissed because she's been told that some women just bleed more her whole life. Guess my mom and sister weren't just exaggerating when they said that they were bleeding out. So yeah, I guess if you're a girl reading this and you bleed as much as my sister, you should see a doctor. Hopefully no one gets gaslit like my mom did, but yeah. Here's a public apology for being ignorant on what y'all actually go through because I thought you could only bleed so much a month. Fully willing to admit how effing stupid that was. Update number 4. Hi, so it's me again. 19M, apparently not that smart, questioning my career goals as a teacher. Anyway, my sister was on her period and thought she needed to go to the ER, and she actually did. I've got another question now, but first I want to thank everyone who answered my first post and educated me because she was in rough shape. Except for the girl who suggested drinking whole milk. Even I'm not that effing stupid, WTF. Anyway, so my sister has von Willebrand's disease type 2. My mom and I also have it apparently, and my mom just got gaslit for years about how much she bled, and it took my sister almost dying for all of us to get diagnosed. Anyway, I play on a recreational rugby league, and I'm gonna have to pay dues soon, and I don't want to be out the money if I'm gonna get told I shouldn't play anymore because it's a contact sport. But I don't see a hematologist for 5 weeks since I'm not urgent. So, I was wondering if any of the doctors know if I'm gonna get told I probably shouldn't play rugby anymore. I also like rock climbing. Is that gonna be out? Should I learn chess or crochet or something? Thanks again. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said,
If you aren't confirmed yet, don't play contact sports right now until at least you get testing. I've also linked a paper for you to read as it has a decent list of other sports activities you can do more safely, and you don't need to live in a bubble.
Okay, yeah, it's confirmed. I have it, but I don't know the types and letter and stuff, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna go learn how to play snooker then. Thanks. Then user 2 commented and said,
I'm a lurker here because I'm not a doctor, but I am a teacher, and I do remember your post. Teaching is a lovely career, and the profession would benefit from someone as compassionate as you.
Well, one thing is for sure, no students will get sunburned on my watch. Then user 3 said,
Thank you so much for this update. Not only is it interesting, but it furthers all of our professional knowledge base when we are able to hear things how they turned out. Good luck to you and your family. And I'm glad that your mom's medical issues have finally been validated. That's huge.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's in her 40s. She'll kill me if I say exactly how old though. So I can't believe she's been suffering for 30-something years. She said she's about to write a big I told you so to every doctor who ever told her to get used to it. Then user 4 said,
Dead serious, no pun intended. You should take up comedy. The ones that are the funniest are the ones that don't understand how funny they are. I'm glad your sister is okay, and I hope you are good too.
Oh yeah, I'm totally good. Thanks, man. I showed this to my sister and she said,
Tell them you're already insufferable as it is. The last thing you need is an audience.
oh man, my sister is savage.
Then user 5 said, You'll know more after your consultation. There are different types of Von Wilder brands, so what applies to your sister and your mom will not necessarily apply to you. I'm glad you guys got to the bottom of it, and I'm extremely disheartened to hear that your mother was gaslit her entire life about her symptoms. There's not really an excuse from the medical community for that, and I'm sorry.
Hey, thanks. It's good to know it might not be the same. Honestly, I'm surprised I made it this far without my brain bleeding because I was the poster child for ADHD.
And finally, OP made one last comment on the sunscreen and said,
My dad's been calling me banana boat since they got back. Oh boy.
This was such a fun and sweet, but also slightly scary story, and I loved it. As an older brother to a younger sister, I can just imagine myself in this situation because this is crazy. And I mean, what is a 19-year-old boy to do? You're at that awkward age where you're like, I need an adult. Wait, I am the adult. Oh my God, that's a horrible prospect. But the sister's alive. Mom and dad are back. Mom's been gaslit, and I love that there's this subplot, this second storyline of mom writing a letter to every doctor saying, I told you so. So good for her. I mean, not good for her, but you know what? At least she's getting her petty revenge. If you can even call it petty, because the doctors lied to her. And if there's anything we learned from the last story, maybe you need that second opinion. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a really good day, and bye-bye.